in their field. And also kindly note there will be like an interpretation service. The headset already available in the entrance of the hall. If you want to take the headset, it's already up to you. It's start from now, the interpretation service until 11 a.m. And now we're gonna start now our keynote speakers for today. So let's welcome our first speaker for the second day. She's from the University College London, UK, and she will gonna present to us more about a keynote topic about the Technology Policy Atlas and protecting citizens online. So please welcome Professor Madeleine Carr.
Thank you. Thank you. I just wanted to say it's a real honor and a privilege to be here over the last couple of days to get to know colleagues from context. Why is policy making for digital technologies and for cybersecurity specifically so challenging? What's taken us so long to kind of get into gear with making effective policy here? What are the real difficulties that people who work in this space, what do they face, and how did we think that this project would help? And then I want to show you quickly the Technology Policy Atlas and just show some of its functionality and how we think people, like the people in this room, might use it. So really, we've seen over the last, 30 to 50 years, really, pretty much the last half century, we've seen a very laissez-faire approach to digital technology policy. So particularly in the West, I would say there was very much a sense that these kind of development of technology was something best left to industry, and that private actors would, if governments stayed out of the way and didn't impose unnecessary regulation, that industry would really move quickly, innovate quickly, and produce some extraordinary results. And certainly to an extent we could say that that has been the case. We've seen incredible technological innovation over the last 50 years, really, quite unthinkable. And we've benefited from that. In fact, I would say we've almost become a bit addicted to the idea of the digital economy and the benefits, the financial and commercial benefits that derive from letting industry proceed in a pretty unconstrained way. There's been a very strong narrative about, against any kind of regulation, because the more governments would get involved in technology, it was believed, or we were told, that they would stifle innovation. And so it was very important that governments just stayed out of the way, and really, in large part, we've had very few technology-specific regulations over the last 50 years. Very few, remarkably few. What this has led to is actually a real inexperience in our policy communities about how to make this type of policy. We've really at a point now where governments are more involved and more ambitious about technology policy, but we have very little experience in how to do this well. And we're very much at the beginning of our learning journey on how to make good technology policy that doesn't stifle innovation, but that does, exact the kind of outcomes that we want. This approach to leaving technology to industry and to private actors and governments staying out of the way is very much changing now. And I think over the last 5 to 7 years, we've seen this huge shift where governments are much more, they feel much more responsible, and they're taking a much more proactive approach. And in large part, this has come about due to unintended negative consequences of digital technologies and cybersecurity. Things that have happened that we never saw coming, that we didn't imagine would have a negative impact, but they certainly have. And governments now are I would say accepting that they do have a responsibility in this field to protect citizens online, to think about how technology is impacting the people that they govern, and where that is a negative impact, that governments will have to step in and take action. Now, really, when it comes to cybersecurity, we'd have to say that although there isn't really a clear market driver for good cybersecurity, I would argue. So we've had now nearly 50 years, and I don't think anyone would argue that we're now more secure online than ever. I think we might even argue the reverse. And I think this is because we have two kind of symbiotic market segments in cybersecurity. We have one sort of sector that rushes products out to market very quickly without sufficient testing and without sufficient investment in security. And then we have another sector that comes after them and patches those problems, addresses them. And those two markets are both incredibly lucrative and successful. They both rely on the other not changing. So there's a market dynamic at play here that actually, I would argue, leads to insecurity. And the only way to incentivize the type of security that we feel we want or we need now is for governments to become more involved. And this is why we see now this kind of shift and change. The idea of protecting citizens online and cybersecurity in that context matters so much because, for the obvious reasons of human rights and civil society, societal cohesion, things like that. But it also matters because unless we can develop these systems in a secure way where people feel secure, there's a point at which we will not see the kind of take-up of technology that would benefit us. So, for example, in the UK, there's an ongoing discussion about sharing our health data online with the private sector or even just with the government health sector. If people felt comfortable to do that, the benefits to medical researchers would be incredible, extraordinary. If for researchers who work, for example, on diabetes management, to have all the data from people who wear diabetic sensors in their body instantly would be incredible. You can imagine the kind of benefits that could come about from that. But we will only do that if we feel safe and secure in doing so. So this is really important to get this right if we want to reap the benefits as a society of emerging digital technologies. Now, making this kind of policy is incredibly difficult. Making any kind of policy is a challenge, for sure. But as I said, we don't have a great deal of experience in making digital technology policy. And that, that's the price that we're paying now. Now, one of the reasons why it's very difficult is because there are these continuous unintended consequences. We're never 100% sure of what the outcomes of emerging technologies will be. We know what the intended outcomes are, but there are always unintended outcomes of digital technologies. People use them in different ways to what they were intended. They're adapted, they're incorporated into other technologies, all of which is incredibly exciting. But it's very difficult for policymakers to know what will be the consequence of a policy that they design when they don't know what will be the outcomes of the technology that they design. And this leads to this kind of, I would say, in the policy community, almost a kind of paralysis, where the policy community can be so worried about what will be the outcome of a policy that they really hesitate to do anything. This is what we've seen in governments really up until the last 5 or 7 years. We've seen this kind of policy paralysis, where it's almost a sense that it's better to do nothing than to do something that will implement a policy or regulation that will cause harm or that will slow down innovation. The other reason that makes this really complicated is even within one government, there are competing goals and objectives. So if just in the UK we talk to someone in Department for Business and Innovation, they may have very different ideas about what kind of cybersecurity initiatives they would like the government to design and implement than the people who work, for example, in Defense, Ministry of Defense, or the people who work in Department of Science and Innovation Technologies, or people who work in the Department of Education. So even within one society, we have actually quite competing and sometimes actually conflicting goals about what would be a good outcome. We've also got, of course, this mismatch of the pace of change, because technologies change and evolve so quickly, and policy evolves and is implemented quite slowly. And a lot of people criticize the policy community for the slow pace, but really there are very good reasons why it takes time. It's a very deliberative, consultative process. It needs to go through a lot of checks and balances, and really for the last hundreds of years that this policy process has slowly developed in different countries. The idea is that once a policy is implemented, that it will be sustainable. You don't want to be changing these things constantly. So how to do that in a way that will last for the long term takes this kind of deliberation and slow consultation and consideration. But it's very mismatched to the demands of digital technologies. It's just not able to keep pace. And here we see like a lot of thinking, innovation, not just in technology, but innovation in how to do policy better, how to do this more effectively, more quickly, and still implement something that's sustainable. One of the real problems for us, I don't know if it's the same in Kuwait, but in the UK, if policymakers implement something and then realize that it doesn't work or it needs an adjustment, in the UK we would refer to that as a U-turn, which is a negative term, or a back down, or we would say that policy has failed. And we use these negative terms to describe policies that need to be adjusted. Whereas if we use terms like agile policymaking or flexible policymaking or adjustments, those are more positive terms to talk about the same thing, which is essentially we need to put things in place, we may have to change them, and we need to be comfortable and okay with that. The other reason, of course, governments hesitate here is because these really significant implications for our commercial sector, for for politics, for individuals, for vulnerable parts of our population, children and people who need additional support. So the implications are really significant. It's not a small isolated issue. In thinking about how to support people who do this better, we worked with this group, a really interesting group in Australia at the Australian National University. It was started by this woman, Joanna Weaver, who was Australia's representative to a UN process on cybersecurity, the group of governmental experts for many years. And she set up this Tech Policy Design Center in Australia. And we worked together through Refrain and the Tech Policy Design Center to create this atlas, because we felt that the pressures on policy teams were so significant. Certainly in Australia and the UK, policy teams are being asked to do more and more in this area with fewer and fewer resources. And so, and thinking about the challenges that I mentioned on the last slide, how do we support these people to actually work on this huge undertaking of developing policy initiatives that will work and that will have the outcomes that we want? So we set up this Tech Policy Atlas. I just want to show it to you. I need to get out of here first. Oops. Actually, that doesn't work. I promise it worked when I, there we go. This is the Tech Policy Atlas, and this is a publicly available repository of technology policy, cybersecurity policy, cybercrime policy, policies, regulations, legislation, guidelines, strategies. We've done 40 countries around the world, and we've gathered over 2,000 documents and put them into this repository. So I'll just go to the United Kingdom, for example. This list, we have 156 documents from the UK, but I can look here, I can compare governments, so I could compare also Australia and Chile. I could look at different types of policies, so could look specifically at cybersecurity and artificial intelligence, for example. And then I could select the type of policy if I wanted to narrow this down, say, for example, just to regulation or just to a guidance document. So we'll just look at regulation. And it shows here, actually that's strange, one sec. We'll put regulatory and draft. Oh, I'm sorry. How do I? Oh, yeah. Sorry. Okay. Thank you, Omar. I do want to show you this because it is very, very cool. It's Safari. Okay, yeah, great. Okay, let me just go back. So this is the Tech Policy Atlas. Yeah, all those countries, those 40-some countries that we have done, we have been limited by our language in the team. So we had some languages, but not enough to do the whole world, certainly, and of course limited by time. But we've done 40 countries. You can see the gaps in Africa. There's also gaps in this region, and I would say we have not done Kuwait, and it would be amazing to talk to colleagues about how we could work on also getting Kuwait's policies on this map. And we also have a big gaps in Central Asia and South America. So there's further work to be done. But we've got, where we've got up to, you can see a number against each of the states. It just tells you how many documents we have from that country. So say if we look, for example, at Qatar, these are all the instruments that we found publicly available in Qatar. We could also compare this to a couple of other countries. And we could look at particular types. We've got all these categories, which we worked on for quite a while to kind of develop what these might be. We can look at online harms and artificial intelligence, for example, and then we could select what type of policy instrument we're looking at. We'll say strategies and regulatory instruments, for example. And if I went to this now, we'll look at Canada. It lists all of these documents, and we've saved them, first of all, at the source, so the Canadian government website. We've also downloaded a PDF to this archive, so the document is there as a PDF, but we've also saved it to the Wayback Machine, because these pages change quickly, and we want to be able to show in the Internet Archive, this page, this policy page was there on this date, whether it's been taken down or changed now that there's an actual record of that. So it's a really powerful tool. And for us, we see, I'm just going to go back to, thank you. For us, we see this as a tool, a really important tool for the policy community, so that when people are working on new policies like this, they're not having to start from scratch. It's not that any country would pick up policy from the UK or Argentina or anywhere else and just replicate it. But you could certainly imagine looking at different policies, thank you, looking at different policies and thinking that forms a good starting point for ours. We'll take these elements of this one, these elements are not suitable for our country, we're going to work on developing something new there. We're not starting from scratch every time. The other group that we felt would find this really helpful was researchers like ourselves, and like the women who presented yesterday on that really interesting project on comparing data protection policies across this region. Having these documents readily available allows us as researchers now to think, okay, I want to do a deep dive into this, and the documents are all there readily available. So we feel this is something that can really help to speed up this very challenging policy process. We worked, basically across the two teams on pretty well every aspect of this, on developing the website, on the back end, the front end, of course the research, and now we're working on our own projects, the things that we're particularly interested in, using those resources. I would say there are a few challenges with this project that we're working to overcome now. A big one is the maintenance of this. So it will very quickly become outdated because these new policies, strategies, regulations are coming online all the time. So we're in the process of applying for additional funding to keep someone working now just on maintaining this, but also on developing the countries that are missing. And then one of the challenges of doing that is linguistic challenges. We had only a certain number of languages in our team. We were able to get colleagues with language skills from outside the team to help with some countries, but it is a challenge. I've talked a bit about this. Really, what we hope is that this is a step in supporting this innovation in policy making that we see as so important for us to really achieve our goals. I'm just going to wrap up now. I think essentially this integration, this implementation of policies, regulations, laws, strategies designed to ensure that technology meets the needs of human beings is absolutely critical to it doing so. It won't happen automatically by itself. We do need to intervene to an extent, and I think ensuring that our technical colleagues are involved in those policy consultations is absolutely critical. It's very difficult to make good policy in this space without real input from the technical community. But equally, we need those in the technical community to have a much greater literacy and understanding of what policy is for and how it is made, because there are all kinds of constraints around how we do this that do need to be respected. And so, and this is one of the purposes of projects like Refrain, like the Center for Doctoral Training that I mentioned, is to really develop those communication lines between us. I mean, a lot of the people here in the UK delegation, Omer and Siraj and Raj, Aidan, we have worked together in these teams already. And these are people from, I would say, from the technical community that are very good at talking about their issues in a wider, more policy relevant way. But we need much more of those type of people to help address these challenges. Okay, so that's it for me. I think I finished on time. Thank you very much.
Special thanks to the Professor Madeleine Carr from University College London, UK for her wonderful speech. And now is the time for the award ceremony. So the organizers of the conference will going to present the plug with Professor Madeleine Carr. Thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate today the cooperative project between Kuwait University and also the British Embassy, and all about the exceptional speakers from overseas from all over the world in the state of Kuwait, in the land of friendship and also peace. And we're going to continue our session. نستمر معكم حضورنا الكريم، نستكمل معكم اليوم جلساتنا الحوارية لهذا اليوم في اليوم الثاني من مؤتمر الأمن السبراني التعليمي وأيضا البحثي. نستكمل معكم الآن مع الجلسة الثانية لهذا اليوم. We are continuing, dear audience, for our second session for today, dear audience. So from Ministry of Education Kuwait, we're going to talk about the cybersecurity integration in curriculums. So please welcome Mrs. Muna Salim Awad.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والصلاة والسلام على أشرف المرسلين سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. For beginning, I would like to thank the organizer for choosing Ministry of Education for the second year. This is the second participation in CERC. The first one was 2022, and this year is 2023. I would like to tell you that we would like to speak in our own language in this presentation to be more clearly with the audience. In the beginning, like we say, cybersecurity. I think this one is more clear, huh? Cybersecurity with school integration in curriculum or curricula. We hope in Ministry of Education to implement cybersecurity in awareness and in curriculum. In the beginning, let me see the directions. In the beginning, we started a little survey, a study about awareness and how to implement awareness. في البداية احنا واجهنا الكثير من التحديات في مجال الأمن السبراني. كيف يمكن إدخال المفاهيم؟ كيف يمكن إضافة مناهج؟ كيف يمكن تعزيز الوعي؟ كيف يمكن حماية الأنظمة والبيانات للمستخدم كفئة معلم ومتعلم؟ شنو حلول التطوير اللي نحتاجها؟ كل هالتحديات راح تواجه وزارة التربية، لكن من أين نبدأ؟ النقطة الفيصلية من أين نبدأ؟ الكم هائل جدا وليس قليل. We have a little survey to ask you some question about what you think in cybersecurity. If you can participate, if you don't mind. إذا تحبون المشاركة، استطلاع بسيط لآرائكم about the cybersecurity. I will give you 1 minute. Okay? Okay. ما هو دور التوجيه الفني العام للحاسوب في وزارة التربية؟ Let's say this is the Department of Computing in Ministry of Education. We are responsible of putting the curriculum and training the supervisors and the teachers and head department and giving the vision of ICT in Ministry of Education. احنا قاعد نواجه تحديات العصر بشكل كبير جدا بعد كورونا. كم الهائل من النولج اللي لازم تكون في الميدان كبيرة جدا. إذا ممكن تخفضون الصوت شوي. Can you lower the volume? It's too much, I think. أول جزء احنا اهتمينا فيه اللي هو تأهيل الهيئة التعليمية بقطاع التعليم العام. بدأنا العام السابق بوضع دراسة مسحية بسيطة جدا لمعرفة مدى الوعي للفئات المختلفة من معلمين بوزارة التربية والإداريين. بالإضافة إلى أن النتائج هذه اللي تمت عرضها في سيرك العام السابق إن 93% they don't have any knowledge about cybersecurity in 2022. 65% from the teachers didn't know enough info about cybersecurity and protect their data. 80% from parents didn't know about cybersecurity. So it's a big gap in 2022. The next thing we started to do is a plan to be more aware in education. So we participated in the last CERC 2022. We presented by 170 head department and 90 supervisor. This was a very big impact in the Ministry of Education. People started to talk. People start to have more info and study about cybersecurity. This is the study for last year. If you like to have a copy from it, you will have the study full in education, the numbers, and the experience that we did in 2022. You can have the copy of the study. In this year, what we plan to do this year, after all the info that we get it in 2022, we plan another idea. We did a training. يعني خليني أكون واضحة معاكم. الانفورميشن اللي شفناها العام أن كمية الوعي ضعيفة جدا. بالتالي احنا نحتاج إلى مو بس تدريب، نحتاج ننتقل إلى حملة توعوية. We have to have a campaign. Training wasn't enough. The next thing we did, we planned a team, فرق عمل متخصصة من موجهين لوضع خطة متكاملة للتدريب, meetings in supervisor and head departments, to launch our campaign in the Ministry of Education. This is our campaign. كن واعياً مع الأمن السبراني. Be aware is something, it's our slogan. Be aware is a word that we are building to build the knowledge on. The first step, our aim, the community, the education community. أنا الحين شوية بنطلق بالعربي ها عشان لا أنتقل من عربي وإنجليزي. الحملة التوعوية مهمة جدا للفئة المستهدفة اللي هي معلم، متعلم، مادة الحاسوب وجميع المواد. First step كانوا المتعلمين. من الاستبيان السابق اكتشفنا أن النولج من المتعلم أعلى من المعلم. الاهتمام بالأمن السبراني في الطلبة اهتمامهم أكثر من المعلمين ونقول الإداريين والإدارات المدرسية، لأن تعامل الطالب مع التكنولوجيا أكبر بشكل كبير جدا، بشكل يومي، نقول بشكل عام. فبدأنا هذه الحملة بشهر أكتوبر، اعتباراً أن شهر أكتوبر هو شهر الأمن السبراني، وإن شاء الله راح نستمر لنهاية العام بخطط توعوية مستمرة على مستوى المدارس والوزارة. شنو الشريحة المستهدفة؟ طلاب وطالبات المراحل التعليمية الثلاث، ابتدائي، متوسط، ثانوي، من الصف الرابع للصف الثاني عشر، أي ما يقارب 450 ألف طالب وطالبة. من الجهة المنفذة عندنا ما يقارب 120 موجه، وعدد المعلمين اللي هم رؤساء أقسام ومعلمي حاسوب 3476. هم الجهة اللي قاعد تنفذ هذا المشروع. نقول احنا صمام الأمان في وزارة التربية هي معلمين ومعلمي الحاسوب. أيام كورونا هم المنقذين في تيمز، وأيام الحملات السبرانية والهجمات السبرانية هم المنقذين في وزارة التربية والمجتمع، وهذا شيء لازم نعترف فيه. يمكن شوية الأكاديميين يشوفون الموضوع technical، يشوفون strategic. What is our strategy? What is our legal? شنو قوانيننا؟ شنو؟ على ما نقرر هالأمور دورنا كوزارة التربية أن نكون خط دفاع أول. خط الدفاع الأول شنو هو؟ أن نحمي المعلمين، المتعلمين والطلاب بالتوعية. على الأقل نوقف جزء من الهجمات اللي قاعدة تصير. ما ننتظر لما يصير الهجمات وش يصير وما يصير، لا، خطنا خط دفاعي مع المتعلمين. المتعلم راح ينقل هالمحتوى للبيت، البيت راح ينتشر. الكم الانتشار اللي تم كبير جدا، ما توقعناه، لأن العدد كبير، 450 ألف طالب أسبوعياً يتم عرض له جزء من هذه الحملة. يعني خلال شهر كل حصة دراسية حاسوب راح يكون له خبرة في الأمن السبراني. طبعاً اشتملت الحملة، يمكن فكرتها هي أول 5 دقائق من الحصة الدراسية. هذه لم تطبق بأي جهة، بأي وزارة، بأي دولة. يعني أمس كان نقاشي مع أحد الخبراء في الأمن السبراني على مستوى الخليج، قال أول مرة أشوف وزارة التربية تدخل الأمن السبراني كحملة توعوية في المناهج وأيضاً في الحصص الدراسية. فهذه سابقة على مستوى الخليج وعلى مستوى العالم باعتراف خبراء الأمن السبراني، لأن دخلنا هال5 دقائق والمناقشة له أثر كبير. في نقطة مهمة لازم ندركها، احنا كخبرتنا في الناحية الأكاديمية والتدريس، إن المنهج الدراسي ليس فقط كتاب. المنهج الدراسي ليس فقط كوريكولم وكتاب يدرس من اليوم للنهاية. المناهج التعليمية هي أنشطة، هي مسابقات، هي فعاليات، هو كل ما يرتبط في المتعلم. فبالتالي الطالب لما شاف هذه الحملة وتعرف عليها تفاعل معاها بشكل أكثر من المتوقع، لأنه حاس أنه مو ملزوم أنه يحفظ. أنا مو جايبة كوريكولم عشان يحفظ، أنا جاية وعيه، وهذه نقطة أهم. فتفاعله كان بأريحية، مرتاح الطالب، المعلم مرتاح، الكل مرتاح. أنا قاعدة أوعي، أنا ما قاعدة أدرس وقاعدة أجبر الطالب أنه يحفظ تعريف ويحفظ المصطلحات، لا، أنا مو عندي أنه يحفظ شيء مهم، أنا أبي يفهم شلون يحمي نفسه، لأنه يومياً قاعد يمسك التليفون. هذه نقطة مهمة جداً، الكل ما قاعد يتداركها. ما احنا نقول الموضوع كله تكنيكال، لا، احنا محتاجين ننزل شوي حق المتعلم والمتعلم والمواطن، كلهم لازم ننزل لهم. فلما نغطي 450 ألف أسبوعياً لمدة شهر، هذا إنجاز على مستوى الكويت كبير جداً، ويرجع فضله لمعلمينا ومعلماتنا الحاسوب على مستوى الكويت. طبعاً نشرها في وسائل الاجتماعي في المدارس اشتملت على مسابقات يومية من قبل المدارس، تم نشرها من خلال تلفزيون الكويت. هذا فيديو بسيط جدا،
التوعوية في الأمن السبراني
أحد
بعنوان
البروموز الخاصة بالتوعية.
مع الأمن السبراني. انتشر مؤخرا كثير من الرسائل الإلكترونية التي تحتوي على روابط تشجع المستخدم على فتح هذه الروابط من خلال إغراءات الفوز بإحدى الجوائز أو طلب تحديث بيانات أو تهديد بإلغاء الحساب في حال عدم التحديث. كن واعيا عند وصول أي بريد إلكتروني جديد، تأكد من اسم المرسل من خلال الضغط عليه والتحقق من هويته لديك. هنا يظهر لديك عنوان بريد إلكتروني مجهول مكون من حروف وأرقام معا. كن واعيا عدم فتح أي رابط يصلك عبر الرسائل الإلكترونية أو أي برامج محادثة. الحل: حظر جهة الاتصال. تأكد من حظر جهة الاتصال في جميع الأجهزة الخاصة بك وحذف الرسالة الإلكترونية. كن واعيا الجهات والشركات الرسمية والبنوك لا تطلب تحديث بياناتك عن طريق رابط مرسل إليك عبر البريد الإلكتروني أو الرسائل الإلكترونية. في حال تم الضغط على أي رابط مجهول، اتصل على الجهة الرسمية فورا واطلب إيقاف حسابك. إبلاغ الجهات الأمنية عما تعرضت له حتى يتم اتخاذ الإجراءات اللازمة. كن واعيا لا تتردد في استشارة المختصين عند وجود أي تواصل مشبوه من قبل الغرباء لمعرفة بياناتك. كن واعيا مع الأمن السبراني.
طبعا بالإضافة هذه تم نشر كثير. الفيديو هذا أساتذة تم تعميله مع على مدارس الكويت كلها. هذا فيديو الأسبوع الأول، برومو الأسبوع الأول. كل أسبوع يوجد فيديو مخصص لجميع مراحل الكويت، فالمعلومة موحدة على مستوى الكويت. تقدرون تطلعون على الثلاث فيديوهات. الأسبوع هذا أسبوع التنمر الإلكتروني، سايبر بولينج. أنا راح أمر عليها بشكل بسيط. هذه تم تعميمها على مستوى الكويت. الحين راح نعرض لكم مقارنة بين استبيان العام وما بعد الوعي. شنو كان الإفكت؟ طبعا هذه الفئات اللي تم استطلاعها. طبعا هذا الاستطلاع مستمر لنهاية شهر أكتوبر، لكن احنا سكرناه فقط عشان المؤتمر. طبعا راح نلاحظ أن أعداد الفئات زادت بالنسبة للعام الدراسي السابق، والمشاركة صارت أعلى. سألنا سؤال بسيط: هل أنت على دراية جيدة؟ سنة 22 كان 22%، سنة 23 صارت 52%. هذا تقدم، ارتفع نسبة الوعي إلى 52%، وإحنا تونا بالأسبوع الثاني، يعني بعد باقي لنا أسبوعين. للمؤسسة التعليمية دور فعال في نشر التوعية زادت. راح نلاحظ أن المعدل في ازدياد من 22 إلى 23. المعلومات المتوفرة هم عندنا شوي زادت عن العام السابق، ولو أن الناس تحتاج أكثر، لأن بدأ الناس لها شغف أكثر أن تعرف أكثر. سؤال: يجب تحديث المناهج، وهذا هو نقول شغلنا الشاغل في العام الدراسي الحالي، اللي هو تحديث المناهج. هل هناك حاجة ماسة للتنمية؟ طبعاً زاد، الشغف زاد بشكل كبير. كل يوم يونا معلمين يبون يتخصصون بشكل أكثر، وطلاب أيضاً. البيئة المجتمعية راح نلاحظ ليست على دراية. اللي جاوبوا العام 11%، هالسنة اكتشفوا أن فعلاً شافوها أن الطلبة مو عارفين، الأولياء الأمور. الدليل أن الاختراقات قاعدة تزيد. الحين المعلومة لما وصلت للبيوت راح تأثر، الكل راح يسوي ستوب، ما حد يضغط على لينك. أنا قلت لهم 3 جمل: لا تضغطون على لينك، لا تنزلون ابليكيشن، ولا تشترون من مواقع أنتم ما لكم دراية عليها. فقط راح تعميكم من 70% من الاختراقات. لدي معرفة طبعاً تغيرت بشكل كبير. كانت 8% العام ما عندهم أي فكرة، الحين 35% قالوا إيه عندنا فكرة. فهذا يعتبر نفسه. استخدام البرامج الهكر زادت النسبة. مناهج التعليمية إضافة هم الكل له احتياج. أرغب في الانضمام بشكل كبير. ما عليه، راح أخذ دقيقتين بس زيادة. أوكي. أؤمن بأهمية دور المدرسة، زاد. الدور الإدارات المدرسية كبير جدا في نشر هذه التوعية. هل أنا مهتم؟ زاد جدا، وصل إلى 75% اهتمام في الأمن السيبراني. الحين الأمن السيبراني والمناهج. احنا مثل ما قلنا أن المنهج الدراسي يختلف من مسابقات ومقررات. المرحلة الثانية عندنا كوزارة التربية إضافة مقررات وجزء خاص في الأمن السيبراني من الناحية التوعوية ومن الناحية العلمية لمواجهة التحديات اللي قاعد نواجهها. راح يكون تصميم المناهج بهالأمور: ما هو الأمن السيبراني، تعزيز الوعي، تفادي الاحتيال، تأصيل القيم في السلوك الأخلاقي في التعامل في الإنترنت اللي هو مثل السايبر بولينج، احترام الآخرين، التعامل بحذر، استخدام تقنيات التشفير. هذا كله راح يكون إن شاء الله من ضمن المناهج في السنة القادمة. طبعاً إحنا نهتم أن يكون عندنا موارد علمية وكتب علمية معتمدة وتزويد المعلمين فيها. يمكن أهم نقطة اللي هو يكون هناك أمن سيبراني في الكتب المدرسية كوحدة تعليمية متكاملة. طبعاً في نقطة مهمة اللي إحنا نحب يصير integration مع المواد الأخرى. شلون؟ مصطلحات الأمن السبراني نبيها بالثلاث لغات، راح نتعاون مع التوجيه بحيث الطالب يفهم باللغة الإنجليزية What's the meaning of cybersecurity باللغة العربية والإنجليزية والفرنسية. التربية الدينية يتعامل مع أخلاقيات، وعلوم الفضاء بالعلوم. طبعا كل هذه أفكار للتكامل مع المواد الأخرى. من توصياتنا الأخيرة تطوير المناهج، تكامل مثل ما اقترحنا، استمرار الحملات على مستوى الوزارة وعلى مستوى الكويت، إشراك أفراد المجتمع، الاستمرار بالملتقيات والتعاون مع الجهات الحكومية والأهلية لتعزيز هذه المصطلحات. طبعا في الأخير أحب أشكر فريق العمل في كن واعيا، أستاذة إيمان الفارسي، أستاذة سنية المؤمن، أستاذ رأفت والدكتور يوسف الخليفي، وأشكر كل الموجهين والمعلمين اللي هم أسهموا في نجاح هذه الحملة. وهذا الباركود لتقييم المحاضرة، وشكرا على حسن استماعكم، يعطيكم العافية.
كل الشكر للأستاذة منى عوض على هذه المحاضرة الجميلة. طبعا حان الآن موضوع مراسيم التكريم، فليتفضل منظمين هذا المؤتمر بتكريم الأستاذة منى عوض. شكرا لك على وجودك معنا اليوم. ونشكر أيضا جهود جميع القائمين على وزارة التربية اللي يسعون دائما تطوير الحركة التعليمية في دولة الكويت. Thank you so much for joining us, Mrs. Muna Awad. She is from the Ministry of Education. We appreciate the ministry's efforts always to improve the sake for the education. ونستكمل معاكم حضورنا الكريم مراسيم هذا المؤتمر وجدول الزمني. Now we're going to continue dear audience about the program for this conference. So please welcome now from the Ministry of Higher Education, and they will going to present the title, the Kuwait Cybersecurity Scholarship, a plan based on a Kuwait market needs. So please welcome Mrs. Wafa Al-Sarraf.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم، والصلاة والسلام على أشرف المرسلين سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. الحضور الكريم، يسعدني في البداية أن أتقدم بالشكر الجزيل للقائمين على هذا المؤتمر للمرة الخامسة بالدعوة الكريمة لوزارة التعليم العالي لإبراز الدور القيم الذي تقوم به الوزارة في تنفيذ برنامج عمل الحكومة 2023-2027. الحضور الكريم، انطلاقاً من تنفيذ القيادة الرشيدة للاستثمار في رأس المال البشري ورفع كفاءة مواردنا البشرية، فقد سعت الوزارة للتوسع في الابتعاث في مختلف التخصصات العلمية والأدبية والمرتبطة بالاحتياجات التنموية لتوفير فرص مميزة لأبنائنا وبناتنا الطلبة والطالبات لاختيار أفضلها وبما يتناسب مع احتياجات سوق العمل في دولة الكويت. وفيما يخص موضوع هذا المؤتمر، فقد بدأت وزارة التعليم العالي بابتعاث أول دفعة لتخصص الأمن السبراني في العام الدراسي 2019-2020 من خلال قبول 9 طلبة فقط في المملكة المتحدة. كان هذا التخصص جديد على الناس وعلى الطلبة ومو عارفين شنو هذا الأمن السبراني. طبعاً إحنا من خلال الدورات التوعوية والإرشادية ومن خلال حملات الوزارة اللي هي حملة وجهني لتوعية وإرشاد الطلبة وتعريف الطلبة بالتخصصات اللي توفد لها وزارة التعليم العالي، ونركز على التخصصات الجديدة المطلوبة في سوق العمل الكويتي. من هذه التخصصات ركزنا على تخصص الأمن السبراني. مثل ما تشوفون هني حسب الشارت، أول دفعة تم قبولها 9 طلبة فقط في العام الجامعي 2019-2020، حتى بلغ عدد الطلاب لغاية العام الجامعي 2023-2024 587 طالب. وتوسعنا وتنوعنا في الإيفاد لدول أخرى وهي استراليا والولايات المتحدة الأمريكية والجمهورية الإيرلندية وكندا. وأيضاً أوفدنا تخصصات تتعلق بعلوم الكمبيوتر والذي يتفرع منها الأمن السيبراني والتحاليل الجنائية لتكنولوجيا المعلومات السيبرانية. طبعاً هذه الدراسة أو المؤشرات الإحصائية اللي إحنا قمنا بإعدادها علشان يشوف الحضور أعداد الطلاب وتوزيعها على دول الابتعاث. نشوفها بس على عجالة. طبعاً كل سنة بسنتها إيش كثر الأعداد اللي تم إيفادها حسب الدول وحسب التخصص. طبعاً مثل ما أنتم عارفين تخصص الأمن السيبراني يختلف مسماه من دولة إلى أخرى ومن جامعة إلى أخرى، ولكن كل هذه التخصصات تصب في علوم الكمبيوتر أو الكمبيوتر ساينس، ويتفرع منها اللي هي سايبر سيكيورتي اللي هي أمن الشبكات أو أمن المعلومات. ختاماً أكرر شكري للجهود المقدرة والمبذولة من منظمي هذا التجمع وهذا المؤتمر. شكراً لكم.
كل الشكر للأستاذة وفاء الصراف من وزارة التعليم العالي على هذه الكلمة. فليتفضل الآن منظمين هذا المؤتمر بتكريم الأستاذة وفاء الصراف. شكرا لك على وجودك معنا اليوم في خلال هذا المؤتمر، طبعا نثني على جهود وزارة التعليم العالي وجهودها دائما الحثيثة في نسب القبول. شكرا لك على وجودك معنا اليوم. So special thanks to the Mrs. Wala Wafa Al-Sarraf for the Ministry of Education for her wonderful speech, and we're gonna give her the award ceremony from representative from the organizer of the conference. ونستكمل معكم حضورنا الكريم هذا المؤتمر. We're gonna continuing dear audience about the program conference for today. So please welcome now from the University College London, UK, to present for us the phishing, the improve, the detection. Please welcome Sarah Yingzeng.
Hi, good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for having me here. I'm really excited to talk to you today about a study that we recently did on actually improving people's ability to detect phishing emails. So we know that the threat of phishing is already rising in terms of volume as well in terms of sophistication. So you might remember a big cybersecurity incident that happened in 2021 in the US with a company, Colonial Pipeline, where it's very likely that there was actually a phishing email involved that gathered the login credentials of an employee through which they could later deploy ransomware on their systems. And as a result of that, they had about an estimated $4.4 million loss and the operational costs. And then now with the advent of new types of AI, for instance, ChatGPT, as mentioned yesterday as well, we see that cybercriminals are already using these kinds of new technologies that are making... Okay, maybe I'm more audible this way. But essentially, what I was saying is that phishing scams are increasing in volume and sophistication, and we see that with new technologies such as AI, this threat is only going to be more difficult to detect. So what the implications are of this new landscape is that we cannot solely rely on just automated detection systems that are implemented, for instance, in your email providers. We also need people to be better able to detect these kinds of new scams that slip through those automated detection filters. So, especially given the new AI technologies, these scams are more sophisticated in the types of language they use, and common cybersecurity advice that is given, for instance, look out for grammatical or spelling errors or badly formatted emails, are not going to be relevant anymore. So the question then becomes, how can we improve people's ability then to detect these kinds of scams? So I think broadly speaking, there are two approaches to solve this question. So one is to develop different kinds of user tools that we can deploy in email systems. For instance, a check button that shows you past correspondence with a sender's email address, which we describe in this paper, also published this year. But what I'll be focusing on for today is different types of education. So we know that from recent studies, conventional types of phishing awareness trainings do not seem so effective. In fact, because people might join a new company, they go through mandatory trainings, and they don't pay that good attention to the cybersecurity trainings they are mandated to complete. And the other thing is, like I mentioned before, that these conventional types of trainings heavily rely on saying, hey, look out for these specific signs when you go through, through your email. For instance, hovering over a URL that you might find and checking the domain that the link points to. But in practice, people don't really seem to use these kinds of behaviors. So therefore, maybe we should be thinking about alternative approaches to teach people how to detect phishing emails. So what we had in mind was based on a very well-researched psychological finding, actually, that we call self-projection, where the idea is that when I want to understand whether someone else is telling the truth or they're lying to me, I'm partially relying on my own behavior to infer the truthfulness of other people. So this work is still under review, but we found very clearly that people who lie much more are going to be more suspicious of other people in general, and vice versa, so that when I am very honest, then it's very likely I'll be inferring other people's statements as mostly honest as well. That means that honest people might actually be more prone to falling for scams, and that maybe because most people are in fact honest themselves and do not likely create online scams or phishing emails themselves, they find it particularly hard to think about the possibility that someone might actually be trying to scam them. So there's one study that shows with the use of malicious URLs that when you actually engage people with creating those kinds of malicious URLs themselves, they become better at spotting these phishing URLs. So we thought, let's take that a step further and have a training where people actually have to write their own targeted phishing emails. So the main question for this study is, does writing targeted phishing emails oneself improve the ability to detect phishing? So for this study, we designed two different experiments. The first one is more like a pilot that we ran online with online participants from Prolific, where we compared the performance of their phishing detection between two groups. So one group got the adversarial training, where they write their own phishing, and I'll get to more details about that later. And the second group got no training at all. So they got a conventional training. There's a little mistake on this slide. And then 2 weeks after they completed their training, I developed a mock interface of an inbox where you get the experience of going through emails. And through there, we also can compute their ability to detect phishing, and we compare those two groups together. Now, in the second experiment, we had people from UCL, both staff and students, go through either the conventional training or the adversarial training. And then in the 2 weeks after completing the training, they received one of 5 different types of phishing emails in their actual own email inbox. So I'll just give you a short demo of the adversarial training that we created. And I do need some help here to get the video up. So I'll just show you a short part of it. It's 5 minutes.
Oh, hello, my fantastic fellow fraudsters. So today we're going to learn about something very exciting, spear phishing. I know it sounds like something you do if you were stranded on a desert island, but it's not. Although there's nothing stopping you from going after someone with the name Robinson Crusoe.
So in this case, we collaborated with this actor who played a cyber criminal, and then we recorded a video with him that basically goes through a very targeted phishing attack that he would create based on information that they can find on social media, for instance on LinkedIn, and then they would go through people's specific profiles that seem to be related to the event organization. And then later on, we'll see here in the video that they are typing this particular email to one of the organizers of the event. So that's just to give you a flavor of what the first part of the adversarial training was like. And now we go back to this slide. Okay. So the second part of that adversarial training was giving 3 different email scenarios to people and letting them then write their own targeted phishing attack. So this is just an example where we said to participants, hey, there's this scenario where you need to write a convincing email to this person to obtain their login credentials, and this person works at the UN, and the email that you see on the right side here is an actual response from one of our participants. And you can see that people really engaged with that type of thinking, and that they really tried their best in a way to write a convincing email. When we go to the results of the first experiment, we find that in overall accuracy, there was not a strong difference between the group that got the adversarial training versus people who didn't get any training. But when we zoom in specifically on the spare phishing emails, so the highly targeted type of phishing emails that they could have detected, we do see that people in the adversarial training condition in blue here were better, in fact, at detecting those compared to people who received no training. Now onto the experiments, the results from experiment 2, where we actually sent people real simulated phishing emails. We see that those who received the adversarial training were up to 3 times less susceptible than people who received a conventional type of training. So to be more specific, in a conventional training, about 15% of the participants clicked or downloaded a phishing attachment or a link. And in the adversarial mindset training, only 2 people, which amounts to about 5%, actually were compromised. We also tried to test this statistically, if this is different. There the effect is trending, and this is likely because we have a bit of an imbalanced number of people here, and I'll get to that a bit later as well. So there were fewer people in the adversarial training condition compared to people in the conventional training condition. And then we did further analyses because we were also asking people after they went through the study how engaging they found the videos and how useful they rated the training to be overall, and their demographics, like what was their age, what was their technical background, and so forth. First, in terms of how useful and engaging they found the videos, you can see on the left panel that in the conventional training groups, people mostly said, oh, it was very informative and useful. And when we look on the right-hand side for the adversarial training, people also said it was informative, but we see more variety in the responses people give. They sometimes find it very surprising or even shocking in some cases. And then we ran another statistical test where we have the logistic regression, where we predict for victimization according to all those different factors you see in the second line here. And we found that lower victimization is indeed related to having had the adversarial training, as well as being from a technical department, and higher victimization seems related to people who identified as male. Now, you see that some of these effects are not strictly statistically significant, but That is largely, again, because we have lower statistical power due to the imbalanced group sizes. But it seems still quite clear from the just proportional differences that there's something really interesting going on here. So on to the takeaways of this study is that it seems that engaging people with an adversarial mindset does improve the detection of targeted phishing emails compared to those who received a conventional type of training or even no training. And that the adversarial training does not, in fact, teach people how to technically devise a phishing attack, but it just engages them with how a cybercriminal would devise these types of email contents. And what we would like to do in future studies is to test this on larger groups, measure longer-term effects, so beyond 2 weeks, and to test this on different scam contexts, because we know that there are a lot of scams, for instance, through the phone, through even WhatsApp and other media, that this idea could well apply to as well. I do encourage you to scan the QR code to go to the full research paper where you can find all the details. And I'd be happy to take any questions. There's also a QR code here for the evaluation form. Thanks so much for your attention.
Special thanks to Sarah Zengyang for her wonderful already lecture session. Now it's time for the organizer of the conference to present the plug to Sarah Zengyang for her wonderful speech. Please proceed to the stage there for the award ceremony. Thank you so much for joining us today. That's why we appreciate the Kuwaiti guests in the land of friendship of peace, how they are doing their best for all the sake for the cybersecurity, because this is the 5th time. That's why we are gathered 5 years ago to raise the awareness for the cybersecurity, and this is about, we call it our purpose for today. So are you ready? Always ready. Thank you so much for joining us. Now is the time for our next speaker. He is from the Civil Service Commission to present the cybersecurity operated environment. Please welcome Engineer Fawaz Al-Hindi.
Assalamu alaikum. Hello everyone. It is an honor and pleasure to stand before you today as we delve into one of the topic of cybersecurity. And of course, I would like to thank the UK Embassy, KFAS and KU and the organizers for giving me the opportunity to represent myself and my entity. My name is Fawaz. I am currently working as a computer engineer at the Civil Service Commission, known as CSC. I'm going to talk about Civil Service Commission just a bit, just to get a quick overview. What do we do as a service and what do we provide for the clients and for the Kuwaiti citizens? So at CSC, we serve numerous ministries by providing a wide range of essential services, from seamless ensuring functioning of a governmental operation to safeguarding our sensitive data and information. We are connected to 85 entities, for example, ministries, organizations, and banks also. I'm sorry, I'm going a bit fast. I only got 10 minutes and شوية حايشني مركب فما عليه. As we move on, sorry. So as any important department, IT department in an entity, our job is to protect our nation's digital infrastructure, defense against cyber threats, and promote a secure digital ecosystem for all our Kuwaiti citizens and clients. So as we go into 2024, the cybersecurity landscape remains ever-changing and complex. The rapid advancement of technology has brought forth new opportunities for growth and innovation, but has also exposed us to many threats, and cyber criminals have become more sophisticated as we go on and move on into the future. And they even utilize techniques to breach our defenses and to compromise our sensitive data. But I'm also happy to say that over the years with my experience with CSC, we have undergone a significant transformation, embracing advanced technologies and employing skilled professionals, and our result in a more resilient and sophisticated cybersecurity strategies. So the question is, how did we get to that part in transforming and developing into a very good, how would I say, experience in the cybersecurity aspect? So is it by just following advices from vendors, marketers, sellers, or just having the right tools, the right professionals? I wouldn't say that. Now, we all know that to have a very strong cybersecurity infrastructure is to have the state-of-the-art cybersecurity tools and the professionals for that field. But I'm not going to talk about this topic for today. I left this topic for my fellow presenters and colleagues. They have already wowed us. And also, of course, inshallah, they will wow us after my presentation. And honestly, I am going to talk about a topic that is more of a psychological, motivational topic for the cybersecurity employee or an IT employee department. For example, to give him the right fuel to develop and prosper in the environment. In another way, I want to talk about creating a healthy cybersecurity environment for the a healthy environment for the cybersecurity employee. So I will be talking about these 3 points, which I solemnly believe these points are made a very big impact on my career as a cybersecurity employee. So for the 3 points, communication, meetings, and workflow. جنب واضح. So for the first communication point. Now when I say communication, I meant it in a mentor way. In a mentor way perspective, mostly. Because honestly, I want to talk about my experience. I would say I'm lucky to have a manager, a supervisor, colleagues that are very supportive in my workplace. They give me the space to express myself to a certain degree, okay? Having a manager that checks on me and I report to from time to time, a supervisor that will give me, to check on my assignments, my project, are they going smoothly or not? And of course, which is the most critical, having colleagues that I can rely on. I can ask them a question, whether the question is complex, whether the question is a dumb question, and of course there are no dumb questions. By following these communication elements, that really help me prosper in my workplace. By filling me, give me the opportunity to even prosper outside my workplace and inside my workplace. And of course, second, the meeting. For the meeting point, I cannot emphasize more. Of course, everyone knows meetings are important. But when I say meetings, I mean meetings inside the department, between your colleagues. Like for example, I know that person works with me, has the same work ethics, had the same experience, has the same assignments and projects that I share with. So I need that guy and that guy to go with him and create scheduled meetings with him. So we can, how should I say it? Once we get together, have a frequent meeting and set a goal to that meeting, I can even build a trust value between my colleagues, between my workplace. You will be creating a team without even knowing it. So for instance, honestly, the trust value between two colleagues is something that is not very looked upon in the government area. And for the workflow point, when I say workflow, I meant it in, how should I say it, procedure or protocol based, step by step. Like for instance, I get to work, I open my computer, I do what I have to do, I open my logs, I check my security softwares. I have a certain procedure I should work on. I will emphasize on this part in the next examples, in the next slides, excuse me. Yeah. So, as you can see, these are a number of phishing emails, as our fellow presenter just talked about some phishing emails we have received. And these are recent ones. Of course, they are blocked. Don't think they are have been accessed or bypassed by our security systems. So in CSC, we have a multi-layered security where we monitor and respond to threats and malicious emails. And honestly, I want to talk about there is no perfect security, and we don't know, there is no perfect security in any place that we know of. So, but I'm proud to say is we spread the awareness of phishing emails very thoroughly in our CSC community. And even sometimes we even received some phone calls from a CSC user that is not any part of the IT department. They will come and contact us and tell us, is this an email, a legit email, a certified email, an official email or not? So that's why we can't rely on our security all the time. We have to rely also on our users at the same time. So this is one of the so this is one of the points that I'm issuing, where we talked about meetings and communication when issuing to this problem. So when we have meetings, we can when I talk to my colleagues, we talk to each other how to improve and decline the pressure on receiving phishing emails, or even feeling secured while receiving phishing emails, is by talking, okay, let's make a schedule, let's make another awareness for the phishing emails. For the next example, here we have some examples of PCAP files. Okay, so here are some examples of we have PCAP files. PCAP files are basically data files. This was extracted from one of the security softwares that we have. I am using here Wireshark. I think some of you know Wireshark. It's basically a network exploit data. So I'm going to emphasize on the part of the workflow here on these examples. So there's something unfortunate about these examples. We have received all these malicious acts from one certain IP, and this IP comes from a ministry. And I'm not, no offense to any ministry, I'm just using this as an example to tell you what do I experience in dealing with this kind of problem. So, as my workflow, as going into my career job, I log into my computer. Just let me emphasize on this more with the visuals. So, my part in solving that problem, these examples, I log into my computer. I sign into my security softwares. I look into the logs and search if there are any malicious acts, any attacks on our servers or not. And if I saw, unfortunately, I saw these attacks from one certain IP. So what do? I'm thinking to myself, okay, what should I do now? I should first download the files, the PCAP files that I just showed you. And I told myself, okay, let me do a second checkup and analyze them. Okay, to check the severity of it. Is it high, is it critical or not? So I checked, and they were critical high, unfortunately. So I talked to my colleagues using my communication skills and everything. I told them to see if I'm doing the right thing, because sometimes I'm not even sure if I'm doing the right thing or not in my workplace. But of course, with the support of my colleagues, they could tell me, no, that's the right thing. Yeah, you should block these IPs from our servers. After blocking these IPs, okay, I should report to who? Should I contact the ministry, or should I tell someone first? Okay, should I tell someone first? And should I tell someone first after? Excuse me. Let me go back to it. After blocking the IPs, I will generate a report and report to the right person. I will report to my manager, because he's the right one to to contact to contact the ministry and tell them what is happening, is everything all right or not. So this is just to show you how the point about the workflow and how the communication works in this point. And of course, these are continuous, and these are the things that we are pursuing and also already have. Transparent resilience of CSC, continuous effort and improvement, shift from vendor guides to internal expertise, recognition, cybersecurity as an ongoing battle, importance of psychological environment as I already talked about, collaboration for a digital future, it's still on an ongoing thing. For the conclusion part, I'd like to sum up and say that my advice is to the mentors, the managers, and the supervisors, also the employees, is to please look into these points and apply them to your work system. They will really improve your employees by feeling that they are well cared. They will come to your work more fired up, more fueled, feeling that they want to achieve more, and this will result in a better way. And of course, and if there are any new students or employees who are interested in cybersecurity, please look into this major. Do not be intimidated at first. It might be a big tree, but you can look at it in many ways. There are many kind of branches of cybersecurity you can look into. And yes, thank you. That's my presentation. Thank you so much.
Special thanks to Engineer Fawaz Al-Hindi from Civil Service Commission for his wonderful lecture. Now it's time for the organizer of the conference to present the blog and to award Mr. Engineer Fawaz. Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you so much. That's why we appreciate always the Civil Service Commission for doing for the sake for the employees. نحن طبعا نكرم اليوم المهندس فواز الهندي من ديوان الخدمة المدنية على جهود. Thank you so much. You know what's the good thing about today? Today we gather from different entities, different categories, public and private sectors. We are doing their best for the raise the awareness for the cybersecurity. And now we're going to continue, dear audience, about the other lecture for today. So please welcome for the Ministry of Foreign Affairs to the State of Kuwait. He will going to presenting to us the cyber psychology, علم النفس السبراني. Please welcome Engineer طارق الإسماعيل.
السلام عليكم. حياكم الله ومشكورين على تواجدكم. معاكم المهندس طارق اسماعيل وراح اتكلم عن السايبر سايكولوجي. This was one of the biggest challenges I faced to get into this field. I come from a technical background. I'm a computer engineer and I have certificates in cybersecurity. If you need to contact me, whether for questions regarding this session or general questions regarding cybersecurity, please scan the code or just find me at Tariq Al-Ismail. I have a social media account on all platforms. So these certificates are very technical. And then I wanted to take a step back and take a look at the human factor. Because if you are in this field, the human factor is always the weakest link. You hear that, we need to protect the employee. We need to protect the citizens. We need to protect the human. Studies show that no matter how much you spend on technology, the human will always be exploited. So for me to explore different areas in cybersecurity, I found this interesting topic, cyber psychology, and I would like to share that topic. And I hope through this, I give you a chance to get into the cybersecurity field. It doesn't have to be a technical field. You could mix cybersecurity with any field that you wish. I have organized this presentation to be of two parts. I will first introduce cyber psychology and talk about it. And then it was a tough decision. I could talk about social media or gaming or even the cybercrime. There are many domains, but I had to choose one for the time being, and we will talk about social media. So I wanted to start with this classic cartoon poster. Some of you might have seen this before. This was published in 1993, and the caption says, "On the internet, nobody knows you are a dog," which is true. So 30 years later, we still have no idea who we are interacting with behind the screen. And by accident, I actually found that this cartoon was sold 10 days ago for $175,000 at an auction. You may see the picture and you may interpret it in your own way. For me, I see it, I assume that impersonation is a huge threat in the internet. Others might see it that on the internet you can be anyone you want. So what is cyberpsychology? Cyberpsychology is understanding the online behavior, whether it is on the individual setting or a group domain. We act differently when we are alone and then when we are within a group offline, and the same applies in the online environment. And to dig deep into that, we have to look at the online identity and how we present that identity. So this is one of the theories of online identity. On the internet, you could imagine that the internet is a playground. You can create any persona that you wish. It can be fake, it can be a fantasy, it can be any race, gender, or whatever else you want it to be. Your online world is whatever you want it to be. And then self-presentation is how we control how others perceive our personality. So far we're talking about the offline identity, and the same applies to your online identity. The difference is that online you can create as many identities as you want for any purpose that you want. And we do self-presentation with two strategies: acquisition or protective. Acquisition means when I do self-presentation, I want to seek approval of others, or protective, which is avoiding disapproval. So same end result, but different approach. And then we'll talk about the self. In cyberpsychology, or in psychology in general, you have three kinds of selves. You have the actual self, which is yourself, your current self, the self that exists in the moment. And then you have your ideal self, which is the self that you want to be, that you have goals and dreams to reach that self. And then you have the ought self, which is the self that others want you to be. Easy example is that I want to study engineering or cyberpsychology. My family wants me to study something in the medicine field. So my ideal self, my actual self, my ought self. This triangle of selves is very interesting because when you have a balance between them, you are in a healthy psychological state. When you have different discrepancies, your ideal self is way different than your actual self, or your ought self, and it depends how much you value others' opinion. If there is a huge gap between them, there could be some harm on the psychological level. And why is this important? Because now we live in an integrated world. You have online and offline identities, and they interact and they coexist sometimes simultaneously. And there's an interesting theory in psychology, is that the more you act on a role, let's make sure this is working. The more you act on a role, the more you observe and live with the characteristics. And when I hear this, I always think of the Joker. The person who acted the Joker, I forgot his name, after some years of acting the Joker, that actor just couldn't get back to his personal self. He just lived as the Joker even off the screen, which is very interesting because the same could happen with your online and offline self. So identity is where everything starts in cyber psychology and in psychology. So take a moment to think about your offline self and your online self. How many hats do you wear? How many identities do you present? And to do that, we are gonna do an activity, a quick one. You don't have to do it. I will just give you a few seconds to think about it. The study says that if you write statements that start with I am, and then you continue, you will get an idea of who you are online and who you are offline. Just take a few seconds to think about it. It doesn't have to be complicated. It's as simple as the schedule or the table that I made. So I'm male, I'm Kuwaiti, a father, cyber expert, and I hope I don't trigger anyone. I'm a Real Madrid supporter. On the online side, there could be some overlap and there could be something way different. So I am an online shopper. I prefer to do shopping online. Shopping offline is overwhelming. Content producer. I'm an online gamer. And I do online banking. So you get a sense of who you are online and who you are offline. When you do more, when you complete 20 statements, you get a real identity of the difference and the overlap. This concludes my cybersecurity and cyber psychology chapter. I will talk about social media. And this is basically social media at the moment. You could be all here just tweeting and, or should I say Xing, or doing Instagram posts, or doing whatever, or doing online banking, and at the same time, you are actually listening to the lecture. So social media is very interesting because it is the most interesting part when we talk about identity offline and online. So just a quick definition, social media is the form of media where we communicate over the internet. The first known use of the term social media was in 2004. And let's take a look at why 2004. So this is the history and timeline of social media. It started in the late 70s with just like bulletin boards being established, and then improved to blogging. IRC was a major milestone because it was the first text-based real-time messaging. So that was the beginning of something unique. And then late 90s, blogging, more user-friendly blogs. And then you can notice that in 2004, Facebook was established, and it changed the social media completely. Then you have Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, or X, and the rest. You can see how it improved. You can see how it overcame the challenges that we faced in the beginning. Text-based does not really deliver the message. So we invented emojis and memes and GIFs. And then now we are doing video content where we can actually show you how we want to deliver the message with body language and facial expressions. This is an interesting theory that is usually used in studying why people use media. It's called the usage and gratification, which is we use certain media and expect certain outcome of it. And that's why it's different. When I use Instagram, I'm looking for something and expecting something in return. I use Twitter or X and looking for something and expecting that something to be gratified and satisfied within my personality. And why we use social media? Because basically it fulfills our social needs. Back to the roots, we are social human beings. We need to keep the social alive. We need to be socializing all the time. Sometimes we need certain groups that could really understand us. And other times we need to be anonymous to discuss certain topics. And social media is the best way to do that because online you are enabled to deliver the message and to discuss and to listen and to read stories of different people. This is some interesting studies on what platforms used and what people are and why they are using it. So Facebook and blogs, it's for fulfilling social needs and affection. This is mostly a Western study, so that's why Facebook is mainly used and discussed. Forums are used mainly for venting and entertainment. YouTube, it depends on if you are producing the content or consuming it. So it could be just seeking information when you are a consumption or just entertainment. If you are posting something, you want to do self-expression, you want to deliver messages and a new content that you find interesting. Who uses social media? And according to the study, mostly people between 18 and 29, and the female gender is a slightly higher percentage than male users, with the exception of LinkedIn. And then when we talk about the personality, when you are an extrovert, a person who is open, who gets energy interacting with people, you like to use social media a lot. And you show your personality. You don't hide your identity. That's just who they are. And that's the same online and offline. Sorry about that. And when you are an introvert, introverts prefer anonymity. So they like to play it cool. They hide the identity. They enjoy the content and not mainly the people. Online and offline applies the same. And anxious or socially and emotionally unstable people, they like to use social media, but for information and entertainment. And I am concluding with this slide. Get into cybersecurity. Cyber psychology is just one part. You could mix any major you want. It's just a shield that can apply to any field of study that you wish. These are the references. Oxford Handbook of Cyber Psychology was a huge reference for me. And this is the feedback survey, which concludes the presentation. I hope you enjoyed it. There's more to come for cyber psychology, and thank you. Peace.
Special thanks to Engineer Tariq Al-Ismail for his exciting lecture about we call it the cybercology, علم النفس السبراني, cyber psychology. And now is the time for the organization of the conference to present the blog for our speaker. Thank you so much for joining us. حضورنا الكريم, احنا وصلنا معاكم. Now is the time for the coffee break. So start from now البريك until 11:10 a.m. البريك يبدي من الحين وينتهي في الساعة 11 و10 دقائق. الساعة 11 و10 نبدي معاكم الجلسة الجاية. We're gonna start after 20 minutes at 11 a.m. Thank you so much for joining us. The fifth session for today, so already the topics about the main session. We'll talk about the role of AI in security. So our guest is from Austin University, UK, to present the innovation paradox, how to AI enable crime as a service is threatening small business growth. So please welcome Dr. Mohammed Azamat. Please proceed.
Hello. Good morning. Still, we are in the morning session. I hope you guys had a cup of coffee, and I would try not to make you fall asleep. Can't promise though. Guys, I'm Dr. Mohammed Azamat from Austin University. I'm assistant professor in logistics and supply chain management, coming from a business management background. Not a cybersecurity expert, but that's where the beauty lies of cybersecurity. It intertwines with everything and anything that comes our way. I'm going to talk about a very interesting topic, which is the innovation paradox, how AI-enabled crime as a service is threatening small business growth, and of course, their supply chains. Let's quickly jump into the agenda for today's talk. We are going to see some facts and figures about small and medium-sized enterprises and their supply chains. We are going to look into the cyber vulnerabilities that comes with all sorts of small and medium-sized enterprises, and we are going to talk about some sort of remediation and prevention techniques and technologies that are out there. Now, the fun fact or the interesting thing is that I stumbled across this particular topic by chance when I was doing a research on a completely different area, in a completely different topic, on net zero and supply chain emissions. And during that, we looked into the digitalization aspect of supply chains and found out that cybersecurity is one of the biggest threats facing all UK SMEs. Now, why does it even matter to think and look into the supply chains? I mean, like, this is a very different talk from all other talks that we have had so far, but I think it's also very important from a point of view that the cybersecurity element is prevailing and present in many different areas and disciplines across the disciplines, so makes it very interdisciplinarity. Now, looking at the supply chain side of the story, we see that over 37% of its United States GDP in 2020 was through supply chain activities. Supply chain makes it possible for over 80% of the products that we use. You buy anything from the superstore, or you buy anything from online stores, or whatever you buy from wherever you buy it, it would come to you through some sort of a supply chain, some sort of logistical channel, or something like that. And similarly, you have emissions, which are also great because of the same reason. So around 80% of global greenhouse gas emissions come also from the supply chain. Overall, if you see that it's estimated $100 trillion per year is sort of a global GDP is from the supply chain activities, and 1.5 trillion is lost because of disruptions. Now, what is disruption? When you talk about disruption, the disruption comes in many shapes and forms, and cybersecurity is one of them. But before we jump to that, let's have a look at some digitalization aspects and technologies, how companies are utilizing them. So you see that digitalization of supply chain basically is all about creating it, increasing the flexibility, availability, visibility, risk mitigation, and maximizing the profit of any entity. And how do you do that? You try to use as many digital technologies as possible, which includes but is not limited to artificial intelligence, Internet of Things, big data analytics, and real-time tracking sensors and whatnot. So these are all kinds of things which are sort of embedded into digitalization of any supply chain. Now, this sort of rings the bell. That's the connection between businesses, logistics and supply chain, and cybersecurity or information technology. Now, if you look at some of the statistics, I mean, like, these statistics are sort of globally the same. If I would ask you a question, like what percentage of businesses in the UK are SMEs, what would be your wild guess? Maybe 50%, 70%, 60%, some would say 80%, but the right answer is that over 99% of the businesses in the UK alone are small and medium-sized enterprises. We are talking about 99% of the businesses in the UK, which contribute to 2.1 trillion in the UK's economy, which is around 52%, more than half of the UK's economy based on that. And the average SME has a supply chain that spans 20 countries, and of course it does not reflect here, but somewhere around 7 suppliers for each individual company, a small and medium-sized company. So when we were doing this research, we found out that there are challenges associated when it comes to greenhouse gas emissions or scopes of emissions or digitalization of any supply chain, how SMEs are lacking behind. But there was a parallel thing that was popping up in all these interviews that we were conducting, and that was around the cybersecurity elements. So these are some of the main problems. Of course, there were many others, which UK SMEs are facing when it comes to cybersecurity. What are these things? Digitalization costs, cybersecurity itself, which comes in many shapes and forms, regulatory compliance. UK government has asked them to meet certain criteria, and you have to be compliant on certain standards and all these things. And then the lack of government support is another element which they talked about a lot, and cyber literacy. Now, you see that there are two things here that are connected directly, cybersecurity and cyber literacy. The problem was that when you're talking to the SMEs, which are mostly not the most rich organizations out there, they have very limited resources, they have very limited funding available, revenues are smaller, number of people working in that organization are usually between 5, 10, 50, in some cases it could go beyond 100, but still would be considered as an SME. These people had very limited or no knowledge of cybersecurity. Now, how is it different from bigger organizations or corporations? So if you look at the organizations which are involved in oil production and marketing, which are big manufacturers of automotive parts or automobiles themselves, you will find that they have some level of cybersecurity in place at primary, secondary, or tertiary level. But in these organizations, they did not even have any idea of if they needed some sort of cybersecurity element to protect their supply chain, their systems, their infrastructure. And they just knew that the cybersecurity is something, but we don't have that kind of money to invest into that, so we would just keep it the business as is. So they use most of the times very commonly available off-the-shelf solutions and whatever is embedded into Outlook or Gmail or other such platforms that they are using. And now we all are aware of this thing, that they are not the best solutions possible when it comes to the cybersecurity protection. So these are some of the challenges that they were facing. Now, if you look at some of the vulnerabilities that comes with it, you see that 32% of UK businesses reported suffering an attack or breach between 2022 and 23. For medium businesses, this rises to 59%, whereas for large businesses, the rise is up to 69%. This is the number of times a company was attacked. Now, if they were successful or not, that's a different story, and we're going to talk about that. The average cost has come down in 2022 and 23. A year before, this was somewhere around £8,500 per attack. And now it is around £4,960 per attack. That's a lot of money considering the number of organizations being affected. 82% of the boards or senior management in the UK businesses see cybersecurity as a high priority, and they want to do something about it. Whereas the rest of it, they had, as I said before, little to no knowledge about this thing. 23% of UK businesses have a formal cybersecurity strategy in place. Only 23%. So we do not have any sort of regulatory framework present or policy present for most of the organizations out there. In 2022, 43% of UK businesses were insured against cyber attacks, which is again an increase of 20% from the following year. 11 million in client money was stolen from the UK law firms by cyber criminals between 2016 and 17, and the trend goes on. It has not stopped, it has not changed. And we are talking about a law company. Now, we have seen some examples that I would show you in a bit, that the problems that occur are not limited to one particular industry, sector, or some particular company. It spans to many different industries, for example, and all countries are involved in that. So you see that in UK, marketing agency was hit, then a manufacturing concern was hit, medical and dental clinic and practices were hit, and of course the law company. They were hit by what? We have identified that there are 4 main types of threats existing or presenting themselves to the companies. What are these threats? Well, what we call as crime as a service. We have ransomware as a service, phishing as a service, distributed denial of services, and malware as a service. We have heard a lot already about phishing as a service, so maybe I can skip that one. But ransomware as a service, very little or nothing about this so far, but SMEs are facing a lot of trouble because of this thing. So what happens in a ransomware as a service? Companies, of course, they use some sort of a software, some sort of email systems, or whatever platform they're using for their day-to-day business. Then there are criminals and cyber criminals who are using and exploiting those systems by sending them some sort of an email, a malware, that would be a ransom malware. So what happens in that is they would be locked out of their own system and they'll have to pay some money to get into the system back again. Sorry for the coughing. So you see that this is one form, followed by distribution denial of the services. This happens mostly for the companies which are doing some sort of e-commerce, some sort of online presence is there, and they require their customers to engage with their online platforms. In this particular attack, what attackers do, they overpopulate their service. There is a lot of traffic, fake traffic, bot traffic, and because of that, the servers are down for that particular service. This affects their genuine customers or clients to use that facility or platform, resulting in loss in revenues. Similarly, malware as a service, again, criminals can buy or rent various types of malware, including keyloggers, spywares, and remotes and access trojans to use them and exploit that situation. So these are some of the main services which are available off shelf. companies have different intentions, or sorry, cyber criminals have different intentions. If they are using ransomware as a service, their intention is to make some quick cash. If they are using malware as a service, their intention is the data breach. They want to get as much data as possible in forms of client information, the credit card information, and then they sell that information onto the black market. Again, of course, the intention is always to make some sort of money, but how quickly you make the money depends on what kind of attack you're going for. Now, we have seen this example before. Some of the very popular types of viruses out there in the ransomwares. You see that Conti, Lockbit, Hive, and Ragnar Locker were used to extract this amount of money. Of course, for the last part, we didn't know exactly how much money was taken from the lock company, but we know there was a huge settlement. This is the recent data and trends, how things have been evolving, and which are the new players in the market. So for example, you see that the Lockbit, there is a huge spike going up, and for Hive and Ragnar, they are sort of declining, as in like they're not so actively used anymore in 2023. Then again, talking about the supply chain attacks, you see that there are a couple of examples here that we have looked into. Attackers compromise the software solution used by the MSPs, infecting by another type of malware, R-Evil ransomware, which was then developed together with the update of the software, and it was spread across the entire platform. And it extorted over 70 million from MSPs and their customers. That's a lot of money. Then again, another one was the backdoor example, how backdoor was used to sort of integrate the malware or ransomware into the upgrade, and everybody had downloaded it, and they had to go through the same thing. Now, we understand the crux of the problem. We understand that the situation is not in the favor of the companies when it comes to cybersecurity, especially also because of the artificial intelligence and its role these days, how things have been automated, how things are becoming a lot more complex and complicated, and impersonation or imitation of the real-time services or real services is becoming very difficult to differentiate between the two. So what we need to do, we need to sort of create the awareness around this thing, invest and improve in the cybersecurity of the companies, enhance and improve the cyber literacy, which is, again, something very important and has been neglected for the most part. This is where the governments should play a very important role by providing public literacy campaigns on cybersecurity, and I have seen a couple of examples here in the presentations. That was amazing. We need to do more of that. Make it affordable, assemble a cyber task force that could allow SMEs or help SMEs to get out of the block for free, and implementation of the cyber policies and frameworks is another important thing. Thank you very much. I was running out of time. So there are a couple of QR codes. This to connect with me if you would like to and would like to have a chat. And on the next slide, we have the feedback form. Thank you.
Very special thanks to Dr. Mohammed Azmat for his wonderful speech. Now it's time for the organization of the conference to present the plug of Dr. Mohammed Azmat. Thank you so much for joining us. And welcome to your second country, State of Kuwait. Now, dear audience, we're going to continue. Now we'll talk more about our next speaker. So our next speaker, he will hear from Al-Salem University in the state of Kuwait. He will gonna talk more about the importance of AI and cybersecurity. Please welcome Professor Shafi'ullah Khan. So Professor Shafi'ullah Khan will gonna join us later. So I will go for our next speaker. Will be from BAE System UK to present responsible of AI shifting from technical to human-centric solution. Please welcome Mrs. Purvi.
Okay, salam alaikum, and good morning, everybody. My name is Purvi K, and I am the head of Cybersecurity for Governance, Risk and Compliance in BA Systems. Now, throughout history, we have been through some transformational changes, haven't we? From the first steam train, to the first light bulb, to the first computer. And yet again, it seems like we're in for another big shift with artificial intelligence. But, like with any other change, there are consequences. So today I want to talk to you about how we can leverage AI in a way that it not only considers the technology behind it, but also the human factor. Today I want to talk to you about responsible AI. But let's look at why AI. Yesterday and today, we have heard about how technology is being used in innovative ways to change the way we live. For example, when it comes to AI in the health sector, AI has the potential to revolutionize medical diagnostics, patient monitoring, and even drug discovery. Even in cities, just like the one we're in right now, Kuwait, AI can be used to create smart cities to enhance the lives of the residents and also to bring efficiencies around the regions. In universities like this, in terms of education, AI has been used to enhance the learning experiences of students. AI has been used with augmented reality, virtual reality, to implement immersive types of learning experiences. And similarly, AI has been used in government services, finance services, and in transportation. But when we start replacing AI for human decisions, then we amplify not only the good outcomes, but also the bad. And there are several risks and harms that are being caused by some of the AI systems out there. That is when we get into the territory of irresponsible AI. So let me ask you this. How many of you are on social media or LinkedIn? Come on, you must be on LinkedIn. Good. How many of you have used any sort of AI tools to enhance your profile pictures? Okay. So here's an example of how that has happened irresponsibly. This is an MIT student, and she used an AI tool called Playground. And she asked Playground to enhance her image to make it look more professional for LinkedIn. The AI tool kept her smile and kept her clothing, but it gave her Caucasian features, blue eyes and fairer skin. Exactly, you're nodding. So, if there was bias in the data sets that were used to train the models, then 100% the outcome she is getting is going to be biased. So you see, the training data probably had most of the images that were tagged as professional coming from a Caucasian background. And hence, she's been given blue eyes, fairer skin. This is discrimination and hence an example of irresponsible AI. Let me give you another example. There's another imagery tool called Midjourney. You may have heard of it. Midjourney was asked to develop images of people who could be in non-specialized roles and those in specialized roles. Now, for the non-specialized roles, the AI tool gave images of younger men and women. And for the specialized roles, it gave images of both younger and old people. But most of the old people for specialized roles were men. You guessed it. And for this sort of imagery, there's an implication that old men could not do non-specialized roles. And equally, the old men were reserved for only specialist roles. Another implication of this irresponsible AI was that women's main domain was in non-specialized roles. Now, one more observation you will see in the images. The women had images that made them look younger, no wrinkles, but the men were allowed to have wrinkles. Can you see how, again, this is discrimination and a typical example of irresponsible AI? So what should we do about this? How do we make sure that when you use AI for your LinkedIn profile, it's used accurately and that you can trust it? For that, we need responsible AI to be able to address these sort of issues and, in fact, stop them from happening in the first place. So we can define responsible AI as an umbrella term for aspects such as ethics, transparency, trust. It is where we're trying to generate value from a societal, organizational, and customer point of view. And at the same time, we're balancing the risks associated with them. But throughout these aspects, there is a golden thread. And that golden thread is human-centric AI. You see, we can use technology to help us understand how data has been moved away from or how models are inaccurate. But when it comes to responsible AI, it is your people and your processes that make it happen. And therefore, it must be human-centric AI. So, how do we implement human-centric AI? There are quite a lot of aspects to this, but the three that I wanted to focus on is ethics, diversity, and regulation. As I said, there are other areas we can explore, but because of time, these are the three I'm going to focus on. So let's look at ethics. Here are some ethics principles when it comes to AI. And again, I'll choose a few to explore. When it comes to human-centric and socially beneficial, we are talking about implementing AI for everybody. We are talking about understanding how does this AI impact different groups of people? And is it socially acceptable? When we talk about explainable and transparent AI, we're talking about the ability to be able to explain what our AI is actually doing. Did you know, in some cases, we have software developers, programmers, coders, who themselves cannot explain what some of the generative AI technology is doing? So the initial user data is explainable, but whatever the generative AI is then developing, we are not even able to explain it. How scary is that? So when it comes to responsible AI, it must be explainable and transparent. But how do we implement this? Ethics in AI need to be implemented throughout the development of the AI. So we need to apply all these principles into the training data, into the algorithms, and into the outcomes. And the way to do that is to question, question, and question. When it comes to training data, here are some of the questions we can ask. How far can we trust this data? And who is accountable for it? When it comes to algorithms, have we chosen the right one? Are there any alternatives? And again, who is accountable? With the output, how do we demonstrate the trustworthiness of this technology? Before even we go into the implementation or development, full development, we need to be answering these questions in a human-centric way. Questions like this induce trust in the development. We can even ask, are we clear about what the data means? And does our solution conform to regulatory requirements? What kind of explanation does this output require, if any at all? Questions like this induce transparency. Now, there are several question sets that we can use for bringing in fairness and other ethics principles as well. So this is just an example of what you can do in terms of the development of AI with the ethics principles. When it comes to regulation, now, we've heard, regulation is lagging. Will it ever keep up with the pace of how quickly the AI is evolving? But some of the principles for regulation that needs to be looked at are things like transparency in a way that is traceable. When something goes wrong, how do we trace it back so we can understand what the problem was and fix it? When it comes to risk management, it needs to be continuous risk management throughout the life cycle of the AI so that you can mitigate the current and the future regulatory risks. For data privacy, we're looking at safeguarding the rights and freedoms of the people. Have any of you heard the story of Tom Hanks, the actor, and what recently happened to him? For those of you who don't know, you may have seen a warning from Tom Hanks saying that he's been featured in a dental plan, but that's not him. It's a fake AI video created of him. Now, he's been used to promote this dental plan, and he wasn't even part of it. Where does he go? Who can he complain to? How does he safeguard his rights? So regulation needs to take things like that into consideration. And when it comes to governance, we are talking about having human oversight throughout the chain so that we can have top-down and bottom-up visibility of everything around the AI technology and that the right decisions are being made by humans. But here are some schools of thought that I want to bring to your attention. These are not my personal points of view, but it's something to provoke some thought within you. Are we overly dependent on regulation and the government for creating it? Remember, the bad guys, they don't care about regulation. They want to attack you as quickly as possible, with the most sophisticated way as possible, and at the opportune moment. They don't care what regulation says. So are we focusing too much on the wrong problem? And we've heard about how quickly this AI is evolving and how long it takes for regulatory frameworks to be created. This morning we heard how long it takes for policies to be created. So is regulation ever going to keep up with that pace? Is it ever going to be useful as we need it to be? And we also heard this morning about regulation has a potential to stifle innovation. I just talked about the benefits of all the AI technology that's creating in healthcare and in government. Is it going to stifle that? Is regulation going to stifle that? So something to think about. Now, when it comes to diversity, you can talk about diversity of data, algorithms, outputs, and people. But let me focus on these three first. And again, it's the same model. Questions, questions, questions throughout the development. So here are a few questions you can ask in terms of diversity in the training data, in the algorithms, and in the outputs. But remember the golden thread that I talked about? The people. This is the diversity issue we have in people. I mean, look at the stats. 15% of AI researchers in Facebook are female. Only 15. And in Facebook and Microsoft, only 4. And, sorry, only 10 in Google. And in Facebook and Microsoft, only 4% are black. And in Google, only 2.5. Here is the biggest diversity issue that we face with people. If these professionals who are at the forefront of creating this AI for us are not diverse themselves, how are we going to generate diverse AI? How are we going to get rid of the cultural biases, the gender biases, if the people themselves are not diverse? So this is one of the most important problems we need to solve. So in summary, I talked about ethics, diversity, and regulation as the focal point for responsible AI. But here are my final thoughts. With everything you've heard yesterday and today, will responsible AI ever be possible in its truest form? Maybe. If we make irresponsible AI everyone's responsibility. And maybe if we focus on this tagline, AI for the people, by the people. Thank you very much. You've been listening to Purvi K.
Thank you so much for Mrs. Purvi K for her excellent lecture and speaking about this conference for this, the 5th Cybersecurity Conference for Education and Research. Now is the time to present the blog from the organizer of the conference to Mrs. Purvi. Thank you so much for joining us. Congratulations and see you next time with more amazing lectures in the state of Kuwait. حضورنا الكريم راح يكون عندنا بريك طويل الحين للساعة 12:30 مساء. Dear audience, we have a long break start from now until 12:30 p.m. So please stay tuned. See you at 12:30. Have a great time. Coffee break. مساء الخير حضورنا الكريم، حياكم الله معنا مرة أخرى في المؤتمر الخامس للأمن السبراني التعليمي وأيضا البحثي. رجعنا معاكم بعد 5 دقائق إن شاء الله من الآن في الساعة 12:30 نبدأ معاكم ونستكمل معاكم باقي هذه الجلسات الحوارية الأخيرة في اليوم الثاني من هذا المؤتمر. Dear audience, thank you so much for joining us. We are about to start after 5 minutes for the last 5 discussion sessions for today, for the second day of the conference, for we call it the 5th Cybersecurity Conference, Education and Research. So please stay tuned, kindly be seated and turn your mobile phone to silent mode and stay tuned. Joining us today in the last sessions for the second day of the 5th Cybersecurity for Education and Research. And now we're going to talk more about, we're going to start our next session. So he's from Manchester Metropolitan University, UK. We're going to present a topic about the digital trust already authentication strategies for IoT environments. So please welcome Dr. Mohammed Israfil Beswis.
Assalamu alaikum. Hello, this is Israfil, Dr. Israfil from Manchester Metropolitan University in Manchester, United Kingdom. It's a pleasure to be here, and I'm really honored, thankful for this invitation as a speaker in this event. Such a nice and organized event. Pleasure to be here. So today, as you can see, I'll be speaking about these authentication strategies in IoT environment. So before that, I'll love to say about myself and my workplace, so which is in Manchester Metropolitan University. So I am in the Department of Computing. So I basically belongs to a research group called Future Networks Lab, where I lead a experimental features of testbed, advanced cybersecurity testbed. So my specialty in cybersecurity actually is quite wide range of specialty I have. I'm working in different environment with cybersecurity, and recently a couple of grants that I have received on that environment of testbed that I'm doing for my experiments. Also, that includes my expertise in secure AI system, which belongs to my MSc unit that I'm delivering as a teaching staff at the university. So secure system development based on the cycles that we use for secure software development. I'm also teaching network security for final year BSc students. So we'll be love to see people coming to Manchester Met, and if we can have more like collaboration and work together and share ideas and interest. So the my main interest is in authentication, but not only authentication in a sense like for IoT environments. We know that we have billions of these IoT or Internet of Things devices, so which is very, very crucial in the sense that it can be attached anywhere, anything, and it has to be safe. So at the same time, how we're going to use these techniques in different areas. So in general, what I'm going to talk about today is not only about the strategies where it can be applied. Recently, I had gone through a extensive training on financial area, how we maintain the EGS data. So what is EGS data? Is some kind of environmental, governance, and social data, how you access those data. So that was a training workshop organized by Innovate UK, where how we can use this secure authentication. I have got training as well in fintech area. So we have supply chain and this kind of areas where we need this kind of secure access of data and maintain that. So there's two phases of these things. So what is called the trusted authentication, and then one part is like how you can secure that area by monitoring this system, especially if it's an intelligent system. So we want at the same time the best intelligence, the best secure intelligence, and best output. So if I go to the next slide. Yeah, so the main interest here is the, as you can see, why we need this. What is the need of this authentication? So what is an authentication? Anyone? So authentication is just something that you can trust. So accessing anything, we need to trust. If it's confidential, if we're accessing something, it's a trust. It can be anywhere. For example, coming this conference, we had done some kind of authentication anyway. So that means when we have an opportunity to trust each other, so maybe the gatekeeper, maybe somewhere else, so we got some kind of invitation, we got some kind of motive that we can get access to here. This is one part, so where we need to trust, where we need the valid authority to access that services. So, but if that authentication is weak, which is most of the cases is very, very crucial, and not only UK, all over the world, SMEs or small entrepreneurs or small management or the small kind of business places, we have this issue of weak authentication, and it loses billions of currencies like this way. So the main idea is to how can we challenge this security in IoT environment especially, and obviously everything is in cloud now, so we have this. So my research focuses IoT environments that also comes with cloud resilience, how we can save the interfaces, not only Internet of Things, also the cloud resilience and things. So we have to challenge these things, and how we have to come with methods that need security verification to mitigate vulnerabilities. And some kind of trust model is therefore, we need some kind of modeling so that we can satisfy this. So this is the idea of, so that we can bring this model to bridge these IoT networks, including cloud. So if you see, like, these authentication strategies, there are like different areas of authentication strategies that will be discussed. We'll see in a few slides that what are the mechanism key properties that have been used for authentication. But the main interest, I'll be focusing on these two strategies. So one is called Trusted Execution Environment, or TE, and another is called Patch Management Things, which is Embedded Encryption Environment, or E3. Why these two? I'll discuss later in details, but mostly I'm working a couple of projects. I have PhD students who is using that extensive test bed for cybersecurity, for experiments with these technologies, methods, and there are some other grants that I've been working on. This is some grants as well, so we are using this. So I'll give an overview of these projects that I've been doing associated to these things. But I'll be happy to discuss further in details for this, in details and the publication papers that we are working on as in review at the moment. So what we're gonna do here, so I'll give an overview of the key IoT properties that we use. So as you can see here, so it can be checksum, it can be hash function, some other public infrastructure, that PKI, some certificate authority, CA, or digital signature. This popular 5, you can say, mechanism that we mapped for these IoT properties for trust authentication. So this table shows the properties, key properties like confidentiality, authenticity. So what are the status regarding different kind of mechanism that been used. So you can see some of them has no like digital key, like confidential something like, and some other has part or full status of these cases. So so that means we need some kind of new techniques, methods that cover almost different things. So as I said, so we'll be talking about this trusted environment, execution environment. So this is one of my PhD students' work, who is working on this TE environment for industrial IoT environment. So the basic idea is like we'll have a robust authentication mechanism that leveraging advanced technologies such as AI and ML. So I am trying to be not to be too much technical, so that we can have questions and discussion later on. Obviously, I have results, and also we have this paper and publication that we'd like to share and would love to collaborate. So please keep in touch. So the idea of here is like, so TE is a key technology at the moment, so which is the authentication method environment used in IoT. And you can see here, so basically in industrial IoT, so we have one part, so where we have using this access management and all kind of things, and there's another part when we have this kind of TE and like other environments for authentication. So this is an example model that we are working on and considering the trusted authentication. So you can say trusted authentication environment is a new hardware security feature that is associated with the IoT environment and isolated from a normal operating system like the REE, or Rich Execution Environment, you can see here. This another feature you can see here, it's called Embedded Encrypted Environment, or E3. So E3 is a secure storage environment to manage software. So this is especially you can use for storage facilities. The previous one was like authentication for a trusted environment. So this E3 allows storage and execution updates in an encrypted environment. So you have, because nowadays it's a lot of data, so we need to keep this data. So it can be offline data. Sometimes like you have to process the data and keep it in your storage. So E3 helps with this security storage encrypted with like secure communication channel, and it has different platforms to support, including smartphones, TVs, and other connected devices. So the good thing is it is interpretable. That means it can be managed with TE execution environment. So it has got different certification, different documentation. It uses AES or RS type, unauthorized access or tampering, prone algorithms to show its enriched encrypted environment. Now, the idea is to use this E3 and TE as a combined of hybrid mechanism. So that we can provide a secure remote management platform. So obviously, most of the devices, if it's like we are using for Internet of Things, so we need remote access. So this use remote management protocols like this OMA or DM, and then we have this different kind of device management capabilities to provide better storage environment with E3. Most of all, this secure execution environment, as I said, like provide a secure communication channel. So, and integrating this TE and E3, what we can do, we can have a secure application execution environment for this. So that means we are integrating this E3 and TE environment together. This is an example where we can use this together. So if you see the steps here, so some sort of steps that we can use together with the TE. So you can see there are some initial steps that we can do together combined, and like generating cryptography for everybody, and then you use TE environment. We develop the request and execution for the critical application. So these are all the steps that we can follow as an example. So how can we process these two together? So this is, as I said, like it's an on review publication. So I'm not, showing in details, but we'd love to discuss further details. So this is another project that one of my students worked with a bank in UK. This is for trusted authentication cloud services. So you can see the cloud service being used is a Google Cloud. Why Google Cloud? So Google Cloud has lots of fantastic facilities that been used for this. But what is the objective here is to design and implement a security approach to adapt this TE thing in banking sector. So we know that, has been said, that I've been looking into this supply chain thing for this finance and banking sector, so which has a, especially for open banking, we need a lot of things to be developed and provide structure with governance and social establishment. So we have this data, and TE really can help with these authentication strategies. Obviously, there's another aspect of this project is to evaluate the developed security control approach that we have to access application development through this TE environment in banking sector. So design, implement, and do the evaluation. That was the main activity, the goal, or the objective here. So why Google? Google Cloud, so it has like end-to-end encryption, and then we have this development, maintaining performance efficiency. So you can see it has this confidential virtual machines. It has this Kubernetes clusters, maintaining performance efficiency. It has spaces, data flows, so which can help for analytics in machine learning environment in a massive scale. So, and as I said, in Manchester Met, we have this extensive high performance superpower GPUs, so which we use for data analytics, secure data analytics, and we have all the storage facilities in terabytes to facilitate this environment, and we are collaborating with others using that facilities. So to extend this work, we have a research collaboration with BCI. So BCI is a Business Continuity Institute, so which helps research collaboration with academics. So it has hundreds of institutions all over the world, branches. So their interest is on business continuity management, operational resilience, and organizational resilience. So their objective is to create this kind of systematic operational relevant techniques and tools with the aim to understand these resilience techniques. So this is a key use case that we are working with it for development of this cluster authentication. So with the MMU testbed, developed testbeds, this example shows that here we can have different kind of smart devices, mobile clients that can be authenticated with a server here, and then which is usually is a cloud platform. So we are not calling this a secret platform, but we have this protected authority here with some GE authentication, where we will have manage this database and so forth. So the idea is to use the SGX or not the Google here, so here the SGX platform on the cloud, and then we'll have this encrypted data for client-server authentication. So we're initially using this approach with a simple HTTP protocol for RESTful environments that's suitable for this work, and then we are trying to introduce some unique aspects, novelty to continue resilience, considering BCI's focus and these kind of things. So the idea is that we can bridge between academic and practical. So that this is really an engagement between the industry of financial area as well. Okay. How long we have? Almost 2 minutes. Okay, that's fine. So this is another authentication-related project, but this is a bit different zones. This is another PhD student is working on that. So I'll just give, because he's just started, so he's exploring. But I just give you some idea that what's that about. So this is more into Internet of Drones. Have you heard of the term? So it's like how drones can be introduced and authenticated in this area. So same with trusted authentication, but in drone environment. So this is another funded collaboration with Spirent, a UK space agency, who helps with these GNS or global navigation satellite systems, and with this Tesla protocol that been used for authentication in drone environment. So this time, what we are planning, so we are having some initial scenario considering with our testbed, so that we can have this experiment after some early review of works. So that includes like a scenario 1, which you can see from this right side flowchart, that how it can be used Tesla in drone to satellite authentication method, and then another will be drone to drone authentication. So sorry for this is a bit short of time, but I love to be communicated, I love to be collaborate, I love to give more details. So please get in touch. Thank you very much for listening.
Thank you so much for Dr. Mohammed Israfil Beswiz for his already amazing lecture. Now is the time now for the organizer of the conference to present the blog and to award also Dr. Mohammed Israfil. Thank you so much for joining us, and welcome to your second country, State of Kuwait. شكرا لك. ونستمر معكم ضيوفنا الأكارم، نستمر معكم من خلال جلساتنا الحوارية في اليوم الثاني لهذا المؤتمر. Dear audience, we're going to continuing today our sessions for the second day of the conference. So please welcome from the City University of London, UK, and he will going to presenting to us the Zero Trust Continuous Device Authentication and Multi-Layer IoT Attack Detection. Please welcome Professor Raj Rajajan.
Okay, good afternoon. I think you never let a professor before lunch to speak. Yeah, so I'll see if I can do my talk before the chairman shuts me up. So, as my name says, I wouldn't go through all these slides because I think professors are good at talking forever, and they can keep going nonsense as well. But I'll give you things that you will enjoy. As an academic, my job is to transform cybersecurity from idea to products. So I'm going to show you some of the work I've done with companies and then how we can take out cybersecurity ideas into products. Yeah. So just to give you a bit about myself, I'm a full professor at City University of London, one of the initial members who came to the CERC, and I promised in 2009 I will have a PhD student from Kuwait with me, and today I have the security manager for Kuwait International Bank, just finished his MPhil and going on to his PhD. So hopefully, after this lecture, I want one PhD student and one startup to work with me from Kuwait before I come next time to Kuwait. So I'm going to start with a couple of topics that I'll speak today. One is about what we are doing for British Telecom in terms of identifying different types of securities in IoTs, whether it's home IoT or industrial IoT systems. So we have all heard about it. I'm not going to follow all these slides one by one, but what we are trying to do here is to understand in the home IoT devices, your Alexas, smart plugs, IPTVs, whatever devices you have, doesn't matter whether it is a home IoT, whether it's an industrial IoT, petroleum plants, smart grids, water management systems, telecommunications, whatever you name it in the critical infrastructure, we want to detect the IoT-based threats. How do we do it? You have a lot of information that's out there from IoT devices that are collected, and you have heard through the last 2 days that how do we understand what kind of threats, and humans don't have the capacity to do everything by ourselves. So we want to detect many of these threats that are coming from IoT devices, either from the industrial control systems or from our home smart appliances. Many of us have it from smart kettle to smart Alexa. So what we have done here in terms of collaboration with British Telecom is to look at all the smart devices that are in the UK and trying to understand what kind of threats we can block from the room that you have your router or hub that you have. Because the telecom provider, I work with Etisalat Telecom because British Telecom has a collaboration with Etisalat Telecom, and we want to innovate in the area of creating new hubs which can detect threats in real time so that it doesn't get into your Alexa, it doesn't get into your smart lights, it doesn't get into your IPTV, and it doesn't monitor your baby monitors at the background. Yeah. So what we have done in this research is to look at 4 types of attacks from the network layer and also from the application layer. And we have tried to see what kind of unique features, if it is an Alexa, what can I pick up from Alexa? If it's my smart kettle, what can I pick up from my smart kettle? If my smart TV, what can I pick up from my smart TV? So we have identified these unique features so that my machine learning algorithms can block these threats that have been seen from our home routers. So one of the problems with IoT devices, IoT is a very new area, so it's not a lot of data sets that are available, but we have recently identified some data set, because some of the most widely available data sets you see here, they are limited either to botnet attacks, but we want to try and detect all types of current attacks and future attacks. So how do we get that kind of data set? So we found this data set, Edge IoT, which actually has a lot of data with 61 features from 10 different IoT devices and multiple type of attacks. We want to mix all types of attacks so that we can just get the traffic through the network and we can identify different attacks that's coming from different layers of IoT. Yeah. So what we have done is we have actually done both supervised learning and unsupervised learning because the hub doesn't have enough computational power to run it through. So we want to see at the home router or hub what kind of data you need, minimum data, to see there is an attack on your home environment. If we can identify it, then I want to pass it to the cloud and then do further supervised learning so that I can understand what kind of attack that's happening on my home appliances or on the industrial control system. So that's in a high level. You have the IoT devices going to the home hub. So initially, all the traffic from your IoT devices, whatever smart device you have, we want to identify from the network traffic flow at the hub, and then we want to identify the real type of attack that's happening from the network traffic at the cloud, because you cannot run all your machine learning algorithms on the hub. Hub is very naive, it doesn't have enough data processing capability, and your machine learning models won't run. So how do we try and detect these threats at different layers? I'm not going to go into it. What we have done is UDP, ICMP, vulnerability scanning, brute force. So the first two are, you have application layer and you have the network layer threats. So we are trying to see all type of threats. These are some of the things we have detected so far. These are all going into British Telecom production line. So this is no Mickey Mouse stuff. This is real stuff on a real environment of a large telecom provider detecting real. So all attacks, we can do 93% detection today. And I won't bore you with all this stuff, but you can see the level of accuracy. We are getting 99% accuracy and very small inconsistencies because we need to make sure we minimize the false positives. So we have done so far these four types of attacks at 2 different layers. And we are going to go into all types of new attacks that we can detect looking at unique features. So what we have done is we have gone through all the attack feature analysis because we don't want the traditional way of looking at the IP address because that's what we have done historically in the intrusion detection systems. So we have gone into new types of identified features which are unique for different types of attacks at different layers of IoT. So these are some of the unique features we identified. And there are some papers, because I want to talk about the next topic, which is much more fascinating. We spoke about phishing, we spoke about all these passwords, and I think what we are going to go into in the future is to look at a new area which is called continuous device authentication. I don't trust me, I don't trust my device, I don't trust my environment, but I want to be safe, yeah? So how do we go about it? So continuous authentication is around continuously authenticating myself and my devices based around device forensics and my data. So most of the things that we do today are we put username and passwords. But how do we build a society where there is no passwords and no usernames? So how do we make our human traces, and how do we make use of device traces? As you know, every mobile phone you have has different traces we can pick up from those devices. So we have gone through looking at these continuous device authentication, trying to fingerprint things. As you know, I have an iPhone 13. You might have a different iPhone, but every iPhone has unique traces. That's why you do forensics on these devices. So how do we make use of these specific features that you have on your devices so that I can be continuously allowed to connect to different devices in a zero trust environment? Because we are going into environment. I worked on consumer IoT devices. Now I work on enterprise IoT devices. Post-COVID, we move around different areas without having any boundaries. So how do you connect into an area where you have multiple devices which are not trusted? So how enterprises trust these devices when they are moving around from a home environment to your workplaces. We all carry all smart devices, from Fitbits to smart TVs, smart displays, smart kettles, and even smart cameras now. So these are some of the intrinsic features. I don't bore you with that because there are quite a few of them. You can classify them from operational data, network data, behavior data, and intrinsic data. So you can identify very unique features. There is a lot of features we really identified. There is no publication you will find in this, I can proudly say. So if anybody can identify any of these features on your devices, this is going to be unique, and that's going to be the future. And we can get up spin out a company in this area and make a lot of money because there won't be, passwords and username needed. And I'm not going to go through every step of it, but the idea is you initially register the device. You do the static authentication using some of the initial device parameters, and then you continuously authenticate these devices. As I move from this lecture room to move outside, my environment is changing, my trust level is changing. It uses different parameters that I've identified in these 4 segments I showed you to continuously authenticate those devices. So based on whether it's a high-risk device, medium-risk device, or low-risk device, you can see the frequency at which I will continue to, it's a spatio-temporal authentication based on whether I'm in a low, medium, or high-risk environment. So this is how the thought process is, and we have already identified unique features like skewness of the clock and the channel capacity, and there is one more feature that we have identified which can be used to continuously monitor and authenticate these devices. So we are looking at 3 areas: privacy preserving continuous authentication, because some of these IoT devices are personalized devices. They have a lot of personally sensitive data or PII data, so we want to make sure they are protected. So one of my spin-off company, I did a technique based on homomorphic encryption, which means you can encrypt and search and classify data when the data is encrypted. So we are using that kind of technique to identify unique features to continuously authenticate these devices in a privacy-preserving manner. So you comply with all the regulations around privacy, data privacy. We are building test beds. Obviously, there is very limited data sets that are available, so we are creating all these devices. So I work with TII in Abu Dhabi. That's my next trip after I go from Kuwait next week at the Technology Innovation Institute and Khalifa University in Abu Dhabi. We are trying to do this in a real environment as well, to do this continuous authentication platform. And then come up with the anomaly detection using the British Telecom systems. So, as I said, this is what most of you want. I have 2 industry-funded PhD studentships starting in February. Yeah. And if any of you are interested, one is around continuous security monitoring for automating compliance for cyber insurance. As you have seen, many of these things now, you need to get cyber insurance, and to get cyber insurance, you need to have your cyber hygiene right. So cyber insurance is a fascinating area. So how do you do automatic compliance? You saw this morning from my colleague, Madeleine Carr, about, policies are important. You need to comply with all the regulations, but people still don't want to do it because it's a pain and you don't have the resources. So how do you automate this so that you can benchmark against all the standard compliance? The next one is on industrial IoT authentication and certification. How do you trust these devices, and how do you benchmark these devices against a specific control so that you certify these devices? So these are 2 fully funded PhDs, obviously starting from February 2024. Hopefully we'll come up with some products which we can launch whenever the PhD finishes. These are 3 areas for those who are looking for security innovation and commercialization. The first one is on homomorphic encryption, fully encrypted data, how to classify and process data when it's encrypted. This is fully developed as a product. If any Kuwaiti companies want to do this, either from a bank or any other critical infrastructure, I'm trying to give you a free pilot for you guys if you want. So the product is ready. Anybody wants to pilot, the offer is free for today. The next one, multi-stage attack detection, which I presented, is currently patent pending. The third one is cyber culture tool. We have spoken about cyber education doesn't work, phishing attack, you do simulations, none of these things work. So I'm trying to understand, based around different behavior, combining psychology to understand what kind of intervention we need to do in an organization ranging from manufacturing to banking to educational sector, to see how people behave with systems without even telling them, and then trying to create different interventions, because most of these standard training programs don't work when they just have straight videos that is provided to everyone. So that's myself. Chairman will be very happy. I've finished before my time, so normally professors go on for more than their time, so I hope I've given in a nutshell 2 areas. One is continuous authentication. The next one is multi-layered attacks. IoT devices don't have any authentication as they are today. So we need to try and think building lightweight. And this is for students who are looking for future research. I think amazing area, these 2 areas in terms of attack detection in multi-layers, as well as looking at innovation. How do you productize some of these ideas going forward? Because there is no IoT authentication device to detect these kind of lightweight authentication available in the market. So, and also cyber insurance is going to be really key, because you will be sued for things like ransomware. Insurance companies, I work with big companies like AIG insurance companies. They don't want to pay any more ransomware, because ransomware is always a challenge. So they get continuous attacks from it. So thank you.
Professor Raj, thank you so much for joining us today, and thank you so much for sharing these topics to the audience. Now is the time for the organizer to present the blog for our speaker. Thank you so much for being with us today. And you're traveling overseas to the state of Kuwait, to already sharing this one, to share the awareness and to rise about the cybersecurity. And now moving now from the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, المتحدثة القادمة من المملكة العربية السعودية الشقيقة. It will be from King Saudi University, Saudi Arabia, to present AI-enabled cybersecurity attacks and also the countermeasures in IoT environment. So please welcome Dr. Fatima Al-Aqil.
السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. حياكم الله جميعا، وكل الشكر والتقدير للزمالة البريطانية لدعوتها لحضور هذا اللقاء. I'd like to thank the FCDO and the Women in Cybersecurity Fellowship Program for this invitation, and it's always very nice to get to see the researchers from the GCC. So, about me, I am Dr. Fatima Al-Aqil. I graduated from DePaul University in computer science and a PhD from University of Southampton. My focus is around cybersecurity, and I'll get that in a bit. I'm also a cybersecurity advisor and fellow in the Women in Cybersecurity, and a researcher and an advisor in the World Bank. I've been also working with the ITU, and I've been a head of training center and a cybersecurity advisor at the Saudi National Cybersecurity Authority. So in terms of my work, I've been creating my own path towards cybersecurity awareness. I have an initiative called CIAD, where we have reached out to many of the government entities to support the awareness and building capacity in cybersecurity. So as you can see, there are many, I would say, entities that are benefiting from these kind of initiatives. In terms of research interest and experience, I have a huge interest in software engineering, and then I got into cybersecurity during my PhD. I focused a lot on networks, and eventually I got into the AI. So hence the topic this morning. So what we're going to talk about today is, first of all, a background and an IoT environment security challenges. And then we will get to AI-enabled attacks on networks. And then we will move on to the countermeasures and talk about recommendations. So in terms of IoT devices, we have seen that technology have advanced immensely, and many devices are now connected to the internet. We see all types of devices are connected to the Internet of Things. We have cryptocurrency, we have autonomous cars, we have also the AI being playing an essential part in all of these aspects. We also used IoT networks in healthcare, wearable devices, smart homes, smart farming, and smart cities. So many devices are now connected to the internet, and hence this presents different types of attacks. So if you want to speak about the challenges that we can see in IoT networks, we can see, first of all, they are lacking testing and development, as they are very keen to be sold and to be industrialized, so they don't get enough or sufficient testing. They have insufficient device management and monitoring, and they have limited security mechanism integrated into it. In addition to that, they have weak authentication and weak authorization mechanisms, and makes them more susceptible to attacks, and lack of data encryption and insecure interfaces. In addition to that, a lot of lack in the field of the standardization of security protocols that are used with the IoT environment. And we cannot ignore the role of firmware vulnerabilities in playing a significant role in cybersecurity challenges. And so, hence, these devices are always prone to denial of service attacks, privacy concerns, physical security risks, and supply chain vulnerabilities. So these are all maybe the most common attacks that occur on IoT networks. In addition to malware and ransomware, as we have seen, around with different well-known worldwide malware attacks. So, for that purpose, we've decided, me and my team, to work on focusing on the aspect of using AI to understand the attacks and to countermeasure them. So we can see that AI has been developed not just to countermeasure, but rather than that, we will use it to develop these attacks as well, so in terms of offense. So reviewing the literature, we have seen a lot of different attacks that were present in the literature, mainly the data poisoning and false data injection, phishing attacks, AI-based malware and obfuscation tools, attack vectors identification, and AI attack automation, and also, very specific to IoT, speech synthesis attacks on IoT devices. So this is probably a summary of the attacks found in the literature. So we'll take them one by one to understand how AI is actually used to conduct these attacks. We start off by the data poisoning. As you know, the data poisoning, as a system, or the name suggests, it's injecting the false and polluted data over a prolonged period of time into the AI training data set. So the data set will suffer from false data, and these models that are developed, they are considered good models. However, they have certain evil privileges which results in kind of attacks that are made for that purposes. So, data poisoning attacks usually, they target the AI systems while they are in a continuous learning phase. So while the data has actually been used to develop the model, the data poisoning takes place. So the data poisoning were divided in the literature into 3 different parts. So the first one is the data set itself, where we take the raw data and mislabel the data, and then falsely alter the machine learning model's accuracy, making the whole AI model faulty. So it is more helping the attacker. The other type is the model's poisoning. So some of the AI models are actually publicly available for people to download and use, and that would cause people to change how the AI model works or functions, and this can be potentially dangerous and probably have poisoned data affecting the organization's supply chain. In addition to that, There's a very interesting part, which is the algorithm poisoning, which focuses on, if you recall, one of the most important, I would say, challenges with IoT is the issue of privacy. So we want to make sure that we actually process data in a way that we preserve privacy. So to do that, there are some AI model generation techniques, which is called the federated learning, where the AI modeling is actually happening on the user's devices. So they actually collect the data, process them, and then at the end accumulate them together and put them in one model at the end. What happens is the algorithm poisoning affects these kind of federated learning models, and then at the end will result in a faulty model. So that's the first type of attack, which is data poisoning and data injection. Phishing attacks, as you have seen, the process of phishing attack can be automated, but also can be made smarter, we would say. So when we send a copy, we could automate that, or probably use the AI models to robo phone call to the victims, or probably create messages over and over again for harmful actions. They can be automated by any AI service, such as Google Assistant, for example. They can make a call on behalf of anybody. And also the IoT networks, usually they suffer from eavesdropping attack, where all of the traffic is actually intercepted. So it's very easy for these models to listen to the traffic and utilize this information for phishing attacks in the future. So usually it's very hard to detect these kind of attacks because the traffic that is created on IoT devices looks very, it appears to be normal. So it's very hard to know whether this traffic is actually phishing or not. So that's one of the, I would say, category of attacks that are occurring right now on IoT devices. Also, you know that malwares are actually getting very, very smarter. And the way that the malware is developed requires understanding the environment in which the malware is going to be hosted. So AI can assist intelligently in obfuscating this malware code and preventing it from being discovered. So there are machine learning models that are used to hide this malicious intention, and will make the offensive time longer. So nobody will really be able to capture them on time. So advanced malware actually have I would say metamorphic kind of approach, where they change according to the environment, and they change their structure on each attack. And so that's why AI has been very useful in that aspect. There are a lot of, I would say, papers that spoke about or discussed or actually investigated the malware aspects of the IoT devices. One of them is adversarial locator is one of them. It uses deep learning to obfuscate malware, and there are plenty of studies on that aspect. Number 4 is the attack vector identification. So for an attacker to decide how he's going to attack a system or a network, they were required to understand the environment thoroughly. So AI actually can help and assist the adversaries to detect and choose the preferable entry points into a system, and they can find, according to that, using statistical models to understand systems, and then choose the weakest organization and the strongest attack vector. And hence, it can be utilized properly for attackers to find the target or the victim. There are plenty of also studies that discuss this. One of them is, compromising a whole network that uses an RFID nodes or devices just by understanding the weakest part of the network. So that's one of the studies that we're, investigating that part. Also, as you can see, the whole thing is under automation. So the attack itself and how it's designed and how it actually locates the targets and penetrates the network security protocols, it all can be automated. So this allowed attackers to run bigger campaign and to create more, I would say, targets and more nodes involved into the network, especially in the IoT, and while it's for example, in smart cities where you have diverse, I would say, IoT devices and infrastructures. So the attackers, when they use AI, they adapt the malware to any unfamiliar environment, and they always search for any potential targets. And there has been experiments on how that could be happening. For example, this is a case that happens in Black Hat 18. IBM researchers actually used a deep learning approach where they recognize the target's machine and analyzing the victim's voice and face and other characteristics, and hence they were actually able to extract critical information from the people attending the conference. Also, there are plenty of work using machine learning and deep learning tools to identify the attack trees and to show exactly where they can compromise IoT devices in smart cities, critical systems, and infrastructure. Also, another work by using RNN-based models used automated password cracking for IoT devices. So the whole thing of the attack automation, it is really advancing in terms of IoT environment. The last part is the speech synthesis attack. As you can see, we probably use Alexa or all of these home devices that takes the commands by voice. So we can actually utilize them, the smart speakers or Google Homes, Amazon Alexa, whatever. They can actually be controlled through the voice, and hence there are attacks that are specifically designed for voice control systems. They gain unauthorized access, and they bypass the authentication mechanisms by using deep learning algorithms to facilitate the synthetic formation of the voice command. So this is another category of type of attacks. They use, of course, deep neural networks and speech synthesis tools. And they voice clone attacks for voice replaying attacks, and then they just keep using the voices again for another command. So they keep speaking to the network to give them command to bypass all of the authorization and authentication. So as we've seen, these are probably the 6 categories found in the literature that summarizes how AI is used to conduct an attack. And for that part, we're very interested to see how do we countermeasure the cyber attacks on IoT environment using AI as well. And since AI is actually used to create the attack with its intelligence and the way it gathers data and analyze it and find patterns, we can also utilize the same features into the protection phase. So the uses of AI in the security of IoT networks, there are plenty of studies in that field. However, I summarized some of them here. One is, of course, the IDS and IPS of a network, threat detection, risk assessment, malware detection, real-time incident response, and automating any cybersecurity analysis attacks, tasks. So we see here, for the intrusion detection system, of course, training the machine on a certain type of traffic that is considered normal or benign. And that kind of attack, those kind of models can detect if there are any abnormality or any patterns or anomalies in the data that shows that there's an attack occurring at that IoT device. So that's one of the most, or prevalent, I would say, part of the cybersecurity countermeasures in the IoT. And of course, there are plenty of algorithms you can find online that speak about, or they discuss thoroughly how to use IDS and IPS based on AI machine learning and deep learning. The other type is threat detection. Of course, we know that AI models can be trained to recognize any pattern of behavior. So we can give them what kind of the normal behavior of the network and the IoT devices is, and then according to finding the anomalies, it will actually detect the threats as they go, like unusual logins, attempts, or network traffic that is going on. Also, it is used in enhancing okay. So it is also used in I would say they can be more effective by continuously learning and adapting. In terms of risk assessment, as you know, that risk assessment usually it's done by hand, and people are actually, they gather to create risk assessments, and they use Excel sheets and things like that. And they probably, at some point, they miss a lot of the data. So if you kind of use the machine learning and deep learning algorithms, you will be able to raise the accuracy and the efficiency of the risk assessment process, and hence you can find potential vulnerabilities and threats. And also, you can generate from that any kind of reports or recommendations to overcome these issues. In terms of malware detection and prevention, also, it analyzes the behavior of the software. It can also tell you whether the software is not what it's doing is what it's supposed to be doing, and hence help to discover any malware that's been installed on the network. In terms of real-time incident response, of course, the real-time incident response requires automated tasks and collection of the data and analyzing them, finding patterns, anomalies, and then also generating a recommendation of how to respond. Finally, cybersecurity analysis attacks, they can be automated. Any log files analysis, any report creation, they all can be used, can be achieved by an AI model. And this frees up the tasks for cybersecurity analysts to be focusing on bigger problems. So the recommendations, of course, this research area is huge, it's scattered. There are plenty of challenges that would face any researcher in this domain due to the heterogeneity of the devices, the limited data sources, lack of collaboration in terms of data sets and such. So I would encourage that through cybersecurity research communities, that the data sets will be shared, benchmarks are shared, attack scenarios can be collaborated for researchers to find solutions to such problems, and also developing a real-time monitoring and response system to detect any kind of AI-enabled attacks, and focus on the aspect of explaining and interpreting the AI models. AI models, they probably got things wrong. We need to always be able to explain them, interpret them, and understand how they work, and make sure that we secure the training data, secure the algorithm, and also secure the results. So the references for this research will be with the publication, and I'd like to thank my colleagues Rihab, Hanan, and Ali for contributing to this research, and thank you so much for listening.
Thank you so much for Dr. Fatima Al-Aqil from Kingdom of Saudi Arabia for her wonderful lecture and speech. Now is the time for the organizer of the conference to present the plug for Dr. Fatima Al-Aqil. Please proceed to take to the award ceremony. Thank you so much for joining us. Thanks a lot. Now we are moving for our next lecture for today, dear audience. We are from Kuwait University to call it the security analyst for the IoT-based waste management information system. So please welcome Engineer Asma Al-Aqil. Al-Atiq, Asif. Again. Please welcome and قولها. سامحيني بس اليوم سامحينا. Forgive us only today. So please welcome Engineer Asma Al-Atiq.
Good afternoon, everybody. I hope all of you are awake for the last session today. I am Asma Al-Atiq, and I'm a senior specialist computer engineer. I have experience in cybersecurity and networking. And also, I'm a student at the College of Life Sciences at Kuwait University as a master's student. Today, we will talk about something different. I will start my presentation with a geographical map. This map shows the disaster of landfills in the state of Kuwait. We have around 16 landfills. Most of them are closed and only 4 are running. This disaster, we don't have a solution except recycling. Before going to the recycling, Before going to recycling, we have another process, which is sorting the waste. In Kuwait, we have the manual sorting for waste by cleaning ladders, and there is another way, which is the central waste sorting, but this is not available in Kuwait, and also it is not recommended. Why? Because first, it is very costly, And also the output or the output sorted waste is not clean. So it is not ready for recycling. For the Environmental Protection Law, which was issued in 2014, it said that it's forbidden to establish new landfills, and you have to place the waste in the dedicated place, and if you didn't do that, there is a penalty with fine from 50 KD to 500 KD. The idea of e-waste, actually, we believe that the waste has a financial value. So the problem that we have are closed landfills and traditional waste sorting. Landfills in Arabic, الهمرات بالنفايات. And the solution that we have to start sorting from source. What we mean from source, we have to start sorting from schools, from home, and from universities, and so on. So I came up with this idea. It is a product, a smart container for sorting 3 types of waste, which is plastic, metal, and glass. And these are non-biodegradable. The benefits of e-first system, it is a waste management information system. It applies the concept of IoT. It has a special automated innovation, and you can recover a value from waste recycling. It also applies the concept of sorting from waste, and the output of the sorted waste is very clean. Also, it is legal and compliant with environmental laws. And we can cooperate with the recycling companies. For non-Arabic speaker, firz is an Arabic word which means sort. Let me explain the system for you. First, we have the user here, and then he has to register with the mobile application. He should enter his information, which is like civil ID, the bank, IBAN number of the bank, and other information, and then connect his mobile application with the Bluetooth, with the smart container, then place the waste inside the container. The container will start sorting the waste, measure the weight of each piece, and count the pieces. Then the data of the waste will be transferred to the mobile application, and the mobile application will start calculate the financial value for this waste. Also, the data of the waste will be transferred to the cloud system, and there are 2 centers. We have the collect and transfer waste center. They will check if the container is full. They will send the cars to the location based on the auto number address from PASI. Then the car will send the sorted waste to the recycling company or export it outside the country. On the other hand, we have the waste value retrieve center. So they will check the civil ID of the user, and then based on the information from a mobile application, they will transfer the money to the user. This is the photos of the container. I already developed the first prototype, which is only a proof of concept. It is very simple. You can see here there is a hole. So you can place the waste inside, and there is a screen. It will show you the data of the sorted waste. This is the container from inside. And this is the feeder and all the details of the feeder. And also there is the component of the container, for example, the sensors, processors, and the Wi-Fi interface. The idea of the mobile application, it will be like this. When you log in to the mobile application, you will see the details of the 3 types of waste, how much you sort before, how many money you gain. And then when you click on the Bluetooth, it will search for the available containers near to you. If you connect to one of them and start placing the waste, it will show you the data from the container. And when you submit, it will update the information in your mobile application. For the research problem statement, now we will start our session in security. So e-firz has a lot of challenges because it's in an initial state, and we have to show how secure it will be in the future. I will present for you the security analysis and the threat modeling for the components, processes, and data. And I will present the abuse cases modeling using UML diagrams, and also show you the potential threats and how to apply the security controls to address these threats. There are 3 hypotheses. The first one, that the component, such as sensors, are not under security threats from the perspective of CIA, the same for the processes and the data. So we have to prove this hypothesis if it is true or not. Then there is a research question. I have to find the priority score of the threats for the components, processes, and data. And I will use a technique which is a multi-criteria decision analysis and implement the weighted decision matrix. For the methodology, I will use the threat modeling. There is a methodology and process tools, and I will show you the diagrams. The threat modeling, actually, it's a process that it will show you the identify the potential threats and the weaknesses of the system. So there are many methodologies like STRIDE, PASTA, and so on. And for the process, we have define, diagram, identify, mitigate, and validate. For my project, I will select STRIDE and all the processes. STRIDE stands from spoofing, identify, tampering with data, repudiation, information disclosure, denial of service, and evasion of privileges. And for the process, we have to define the security requirement, create an application diagram, identify the threats, mitigate, and validate the threats have been mitigated. So this cycle should be a routine development cycle to reduce the risk and the threats of your system. For the tool, I'm using the Microsoft Threat Modeling tool, which will find the threats in the system in the design phase of the software, and also it will reduce the cost of the development. So the tool enables you to show the security design of the system, and also it will analyze the potential threats and then suggest the mitigate solution for these security issues. The tool has some features. For example, it is automated. It uses the STRIDE model, and there is a reporting. It uses a unique methodology and design for developers, and also it focuses on design analysis. This is the interface of the tool. And when you open the tool, you can design or draw your own diagram, and then you can use the stencils to draw your diagram. When you run the application, it will show you the threat list, and for each threat, there is a properties. And you can create or modify the existing templates and stencils. This is the feature where you can generate a full or custom reports. For data collection and data analysis, I will show you the diagram and the generated report and the score that I got from the calculation, table of attacks and defenses, and also the controls and data classification and risk management. So this is a diagram of our system. You can see that there is a mobile application, there is a web interface, the IoT, and also the system from inside. And if I generate the report, I will get this result. As you can see here, the system gave me 145 attacks, and this is the diagram. And each part of the diagram, it will analyze it. For example, here we have the interaction, the Bluetooth send. It gives me around 10 attacks, and there is a priority for each attack. So based on this report, I extract some data, which is the priority, and start calculating this is the report, and start calculating the threat priority. So I took 5 components and the criteria based on low priority, medium, and high. And I did the same for the processes and the data and get the total scores for each of them. So the finding that I found from this research that hypothesis 1 is not true because the functionality of the component will affect the system's output. If the components are not functioning well, then the output will be false. The same for the processes, that each processes will lead to a false result. So I have to apply the security controls and harden the device. And also the data, I have to apply layers of defenses to protect the data in any layer. For the research questions, I found the scores here, and as a conclusion, I found that the component got the highest priority to be secured in any IoT project. For the abuse cases, it is a model for security requirement, and it's used the UML diagram to identify the threats. For example, here, why I'm using the abuse cases, because during the requirement design and testing phase, I have to show the security privileges of the system, how it will be abused. There are many UML diagrams. As you know that, UML is a modeling language to document the business process and software architecture. And there is activity, network, class, sequence, use case, and data flow. So this is the activity diagram only for the container. When we zoom inside the container, we will find many functions. The blue, the red box means that there is a potential attack or potential threat, and the red one, and the blue one, how to mitigate this attack. So in any attacker, if he play with the function of the container, for example, he will play with the number of pieces sorted, so he will gain more money, and this is the play. And this is how we have to secure this device. The same for the sequence diagram. For the network diagram, we have to look for the system in many views. The use case diagram, as you can see, that the attacker can access the container or the mobile application or the server. For the class diagram, we will focus here. You can see that there is the mobile application and there is sensitive data. For example, we have the name, the mobile, IBAN number, and also the civil ID. So we have to protect this information against the potential threats. For the data flow diagram also. From all these UML diagrams, I came up with this table. This table shows the attacks and defenses for the system. And you can see here it will show the data state, it is in transit or during processing, and also the CIA category. And also I apply the security controls based on ISO 27002 for all these attacks. This is a sample 8 of 47 attacks I found it from the UML diagrams. The good news that ISO start publishing IoT standards 1 year ago for first with the guidelines, and then they will publish an ISO standard for the device-based baseline requirement. So it will be, inshallah, next month. For the data classification, you can see that we have the high priority, medium, and low, and all these data extracted from the EFERS system. For the risk register, this is a sample 4 of 10 IoT risks, and we found the risk exposure here for each risk and how to reduce this risk. And based on this information, we use the risk matrix and then use the Pareto chart to show which risk is more important. Found that the security and privacy is the highest risk, and we have to mitigate them, and all the risk will be reduced. In this system, we are applying the 4 ethical principles, which is respect for autonomy, because using this function or using this system is optional for users. So they just have to agree on terms and conditions. There is a beneficence because EFERS system has a lot of benefits for the country, for people, for the recycling company, and for the environment. For minimal efficiency, because the aim of this system is to reduce the harm to the environment by encouraging people to sort waste before recycling. And for the justice, actually, this system use a special technology so we can measure the sorted waste with a very accurate technique so we can convert it to financial value for each user. The conclusion, actually in version 2 or, of the prototype, we have to take in consideration the non-functional requirement, such as security, because it's very important for the main function of the system. And also, security will build the trust and the truthness with the users, companies, and also the investor, because it will give me, it will show how EFERS will be a strong system for a successful business. EFERS shows promising in digital trust and safety. So this IoT product can be pushed as a product in local and global markets. Thank God that I got the US patent from US, and it is supported by Sabah Al-Ahmed Center for Giftedness and Creativity. And also I got the Middle East Award, the International Award in South Korea. It was a semi-grand prize between more than 300 inventions from 28 countries. And the National Award, it was the 3rd place. And guess what? This is the Islamic World Award. During my grad studies, our university always encouraged us to participate in this award. So recently I got good news that I'm a winner in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia Award for the environmental management in the Islamic Award. Actually, I don't have photos. I'm sorry, because the award ceremony will be at the end of this week. Some references, I use it in my research, and I really thank our university, especially the College of Grad Studies and the College of Life Sciences, and thanks for our faculty member, and thank you.
Engineer Asma Al-Atiq, thank you so much for joining us. Congratulations for these all awards, and there is another next award to you also. You have present the blog from the conferences. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Now is the finally for the closing remarks with Dr. Amir Mohammed. But before that, about me, I would like to thank everybody who joining us from yesterday until today. For now, my presenting already finished. Thank you so much for joining us. إن شاء الله سامحوني على القصور يا جماعة، احنا وصلنا معكم الختام ونختم مع الدكتور أمير محمد. إن شاء الله قدمنا اللي يرضيكم، ونلتقي معكم إن شاء الله في الكونفرنس القادم. شكرا لكم، وهذا المايك عندك.
Right. If you can bear with me for just 10 minutes. I won't keep you away too much from lunch. But basically, I just want, so first of all, thank you, Mr. Abdulaziz Darwish. I'm pretty sure you'll agree with me that he did a really good job at coordinating the event. Thank you very much. So, like I said, I compiled here a basic, a very simplified version of what I would call a recommendation. But hopefully these are not going to be replacements to the talks themselves. They're basically just to summarize what personally I think are good recommendations, but you are free to always suggest for me others as well. Some of the recommendations regarding digital trust and safety. So basically, based on the talks that we've seen today, we want to make sure that we establish comprehensive frameworks that incentivize and penalize the promoting or lack thereof of best practices for critical national infrastructure. We also want to make sure to investigate and develop new protocols for securing data and establishing trust in online interactions. So that's particularly important in the domain of e-commerce and social media. And we want to develop and enforce regulations that mandate companies to adhere to stringent data protection and privacy measures. So these are basically with regards to digital trust and safety. And again, these are not comprehensive. They're just some snapshots of what I saw from some of the excellent presentations during this 2 days. With regards to cybersecurity education and training, we've seen here great talks in the morning session, and specifically we want to sort of refine our courses on cybersecurity and ensure that we're always up to date with the most current knowledge and practices into the educational material for both secondary and college level education. We also want to provide training programs for teachers to get updated on the latest cybersecurity topics and build relationships, just like what we're doing right now, between international entities and between government and private sectors. And finally, of course, is we want to conduct more comprehensive awareness campaigns for educating the public, as we've seen today. This is an important aspect of ensuring that what we actually apply in reality actually gets followed and is maintained. And I guess for the last set of recommendations here regarding the role of AI in cybersecurity. Now, whether you like it or not, AI is coming, and it has a both positive and negative effect on the cybersecurity landscape. So we need to make sure that how would AI be manipulated or exploited by malicious actors, and we have to develop countermeasures to prevent these kind of malicious acts. And then we have to ensure that the results of AI can be easily interpretable and explainable. Using AI without knowing why it does what it does is not enough. We need to make sure that we understand the reasoning behind what it's doing. So this is something important that we have to consider as well. And then finally, of course, and this is was highlighted by Sarah's talk, is responsible AI. We want to make sure that we have to design our AI systems around humans and not around systems that are not, they don't take into consideration the human factor. So that's it for me, and just want to make I want to thank some special people here in the room. Hopefully, I don't know if they're here or not. But first of all, Engineer Budur Al-Kandari. She did a great job at actually making this event happen. She worked tirelessly behind the scenes. Everything that's behind the scenes, she's behind it. And then Marwa Abul, where is she? She's not here, but she's not here because she's doing something important. I know she is. Then Engineer Shahad Al-Ayash from NCSC. Oh, there she is. Yes, of course. And finally, Engineer Manal Mansour. Thank you so much for your hard work. Without you, this event wouldn't have happened. And then we have a good supporting student team who actually helped with the design. So Sidra Al-Asrawi, Sarah Shamari, and Hussein Ashkanani, thank you so much for your work. And of course, our students, right? Our student volunteers from the Computer Engineering Department, the KU AI and Robotics Society. These are the students you'll sometimes see with the badges, and they'll help you around. Who are they? If they can raise their hands. Right, so some of them are there. Thank you so much for volunteering, and thank you for being part of this organization. And finally, on behalf of Kuwait University, Kuwait College of Science and Technology, and the National Cybersecurity Center, thank you for attending the conference, and hopefully we'll see you next year. Thank you so much.